right, welcome to the show, episode 18 of Toxic Masculinity. I was actually going to jump from our opening banner to our beautiful faces a little bit earlier, but for some reason, Kurt ducked out of screen, as he always does, right as I'm going to cut to us. I don't know why you do that. You know I'm about to cut to us. Why do you jump out of screen every single time? It's the weirdest thing. I kind of got it better this time because I was watching.
It's like when the sports guys, like the players, don't change their socks because they're on a streak.
It's a lucky thing. Yeah.
I've been so
let's keep this show. Let's keep the numbers of this show very, very low, and keep the critics complaining about us. Keep us on our streak, Kurt. I like it.
Yeah. Well,
all right. So before we start with the news, I had a little discussion with Kurt the other night about a little documentary. Sorry, I cut myself shaving. This is why we don't buy we don't buy Gillette razors because they're terrible. But where I'm at, there's literally no other brands in the store. I go into the store and it's literally just Gillette. That's the only brand available. It's really annoying. But anyway, I digress. So the other night I watched a documentary about Reading Rainbow on Netflix. Now, Reading Rainbow is a show I think we all grew up with. You grew up with it, Jason?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, LeVar Burton.
Watched it.
We all love that guy.
Every day, watch that show.
Every day. Great show. Great show.
It actually inspired me a lot in my youth.
To do what?
To be creative, to be interested in writing, reading.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I never felt that I was really inspired. That's the kind of irony of that show for me. It never really inspired me to read. I actually just liked watching the show. I actually preferred watching the show to reading. I would rather just have
Chris,
LeVar Burton read a book to me.
LeVar Burton's black, so you couldn't see yourself. You couldn't identify with wanting to read.
Yeah, well,
okay, now that's
okay. You're jumping the gun there, but what's interesting about this documentary is that it's totally woke, and it just annoyed the hell out of me because how do you make a documentary about a children's show from the 80s woke? How the hell do you manage to do that? But they did it. They did it because why? Because they're so damn lefty. They're so obsessed with race and gender and all that crap that they managed to make a documentary about you, which should be totally neutral, politically neutral. They make it woke and just disgusting to watch. And full disclosure, I actually used to work for the production company that produced the show Reading Rainbow. This was actually my first job out of college. And the two women who ran the company, try to think of their names. Orly Wiseman and Nikki Silver. They're in the documentary.
Orly?
Orly. It's a Jewish name. Orly. Anyway, they these two women from Long Island, and they ran the production company there, or the offices. And these women were the nastiest, most horrible people I've ever worked for in my entire life. They weren't really that much in the documentary because I don't think they had all that much to do with the actual creation of the show Reading Rainbow. They're just sort of employees at the company. But by the time I got there, they were running the offices, and they made their secretary cry every single day. Every single day. That's what I was told when I got there, because I noticed the secretary was crying, and somebody goes, "Oh, they make her cry every single day." I'm like, all right. The office manager quit within 3 days of me getting there. The secretary quit within a couple of days of me getting there. And so after the third day, they actually interviewed me for the job of office manager. After 3 weeks, I took the job. And then after 3 months, they start screaming and yelling at one of my interns who made a mistake delivering something. And I said, "Whoa, hold on, guys." I wasn't too confrontational. I just said, "Look, this guy works 2 days a week for free. He doesn't know what he's doing. If there was a mistake, it was because I didn't properly instruct him, or, whatever. I probably should have been a little bit more careful with how I explained how he should do this little job or whatever." And they just looked me up and down, walked into their office. They called me in a few minutes later and fired me.
Yeah.
That was my first job out of college.
Because they just wanted to
getting
be
fired.
bullies, and you were not facilitating.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Their behavior.
Yeah.
You weren't letting them, kind of get their jollies out by basically kicking a dog. They've got this this intern who's working for free and just getting all their frustrations out on them. And that's so good. You got out of that environment, but that's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, it's the same thing as like a bad cop. On the right, oftentimes we're like support cops. Well, there are actually bad cops. There are some bad cops. I wouldn't say that the biggest problem within the police force is racism, as the left likes to pretend, but there are bullies and bad cops. And the problem is if you give somebody power and they're not a person with integrity, they almost will always abuse that power. And that's what these women were trying to do. It was a horrible, horrible, toxic work environment, to use a popular term, toxic, which we love on this show. But in the actual negative sense, it was in fact a toxic work environment. And it was just terrible. And I thought, man, these guys produce children's shows and these women are pure evil. It was a horrible place to work. But anyway, watching through the documentary, so there's a little behind the scenes insight there. But working on this, watching this documentary, what I noticed was the first person they bring on to talk about the creation of the show was this woman, and it says co-creator next to her. And she's talking about how she applied for a position at like a local PBS affiliate company, and they wanted to do a show about books and reading. And she goes, and there was this other PBS affiliate from Baltimore or something like that, and they wanted to do I don't remember, might not have been Baltimore, but she says, and they wanted to do a reading show as well. And so they put me on it, and I've been reading my whole life, and they spent like 5 minutes or 10 minutes talking to this woman, and then they cut to the guy from the other affiliate station who was the other co-creator, and it turns out he's the one that created the show. He came up with the whole idea, but he's a straight white man, so they couldn't use him first in the documentary. They had to cut to this girl who was just hired to help him out, basically. And okay, granted, she may have had a lot of input and helped out a lot, but it was his idea. Don't you start with the guy whose idea it was? But no, he's a man. And then he's like barely in the documentary at all. And then they cut to this husband and wife team who dealt with all the production. And now the guy directed most of the early episodes of this show, so he should be in the documentary the most, right? But no, he's barely in it at all. And you get the wife's commentary about everything. Why? Because he's a man and she's a woman. Then, of course, it goes into LeVar Burton and how if you didn't know anything about 80s television, you would think by this documentary that LeVar Burton was the only black man on television in the 1980s. They're interviewing kids going, oh, it was just so good to see somebody who looked like me on the television. And I'm just like, okay, obviously you didn't exist in the 80s or you weren't watching TV, because there were tons of black guys on TV. Get over yourselves. LeVar was great, of course.
Cops
but
was
in
on
my
back
view,
then? That was a 90s show.
But very good, very good, very good. But look, I used to love that show. I loved LeVar Burton. I didn't even really think about that he was black ever. Okay. Now, some little black kid, maybe he did think of that and be like, oh, that's so cool. There's a black guy on TV. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Jason? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't watch documentaries because they're all a bunch of lefty propaganda.
Big time. Yeah.
Let me tell you a little bit of an insight about documentaries. I went to school in England for a year, and I was instructed by one of the top researchers and I guess of film theory, specifically regarding documentaries. It was documentary film theory, and he produced one of the books that was like considered like the hallmark books of this, I don't know, field of study. And so like people would like buy his books to teach students in schools all over the world about documentary film study. And this was my professor, right? And his entire philosophy of documentary film was, from the perspective of the camera, you can never get the full truth, right? Truth is distorted by the lens. Truth is distorted by your life history, your perception of reality, and all that kind of thing, which is obviously true. That's obviously true. But then his response to that, his idea of how a documentary should be made, because it's an imperfect perception of reality, is you shouldn't even try to depict reality at all. Just come up with a message, film as much of reality as you can, and then try to cut it so that it tells the story of your message, regardless of the truth. So, of course, I wrote my final thesis for the class, completely rebutting all of his points and saying, no matter what your perception of reality is, you should at least try to get to the truth. And his student teacher failed my thesis, failed me for the whole class. But he came in, to his credit, he came in and crossed out the F and made it a C. I still think I should have got an A for that. But to his credit, he was like, that's a little bit harsh. Just because basically all the comments were just like, no, you disagreed with the professor, so you get an F. That was essentially it. But anyway, that's what goes into
for the lefties and the Democrats. History started yesterday, so.
Well, look,
yeah.
I just wanted to relay that because I want people to know, if you watch a documentary, this is what documentary filmmakers are thinking. This is what they're taught in school. If they go to NYU, if they go to any of these big schools, UCLA, these lefty schools being taught film, this is what they're taught. Truth doesn't matter. Just tell your story, whatever it is that you want to say.
It's funny because all the lefty documentaries are all legit, but then when somebody like puts a documentary out about voting rigging and all that, it's all fake. Like if a Republican or a conservative person puts out a documentary, it's all fake. It's not real.
News,
propaganda.
It's misinformation or disinformation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
that's a shame.
Anyway, I just wanted to tell that story about the horrible experience watching the Reading a Rainbow documentary. I do not recommend watching it. You do get a little bit of a nostalgia because you see like clips from 80s, Reading Rainbow. So if you want to check that out, maybe you should. But do expect it to be very, very woke. All right, so that was what I did the other night.
Chris, should I mention the PBS Asian American?
Oh, please do. Yes.
Thing that. So my mother was watching this thing. I walk in to the kitchen. There's a TV in the kitchen as well, and she's watching this. So the first thing I noticed is there's this woman speaking. So it's an Asian woman, middle aged. So I'm like, okay, what is she watching? What is this woman saying? And she's talking about how I'm a lesbian, I'm this, I'm that, and basically I live in fear, or I've always lived in fear because I'm a lesbian, right? I'm like, okay, whatever. So as I'm doing whatever I'm doing, I hear this other guy talking, and he sounds super gay. So I'm just like, okay, what is this, like you're watching some kind of gay Asian documentary? And she's like snaps at me. She's like, no, it's not a gay Asian documentary. It's a documentary about Asian Americans. They just happen to be gay. I'm just like, oh, of course they do. Of course they do, because you want a purely far left viewpoint.
So your mom doesn't realize that this is orchestrated. She thinks it's just by chance.
No. She and Grandma are getting stuck right in the feels, because that's what this is designed to do. It's designed to
right.
Not to tell
the
history.
Japanese were oppressed. Yeah.
Not only the Japanese, talking about Chinese and stuff too. Why she cares what happened to the Chinese, I'll never know. But yeah, it's basically made to get people to have sympathy for to root for the people that they want them to root for, and to sneer at the people that they want them to dislike. It's just propaganda. So the one thing that I brought up to you was they were talking about the Chinese immigrants. I think it was I don't remember the exact time frame, but at one point they were mentioning how this older woman, I guess she's middle-aged now, but she was a young girl. Her dad, it was a common thing for Chinese immigrants to be in San Francisco under the wrong false names. He was posing as somebody else to go and live with some people, and he was under a false name. He was in the country illegally, and he was writing articles for a Chinese newspaper back in China. So the FBI shows up, and they'd be like, hey, are you who you say you are? You're this other guy. And she'd be like, oh, we were scared because it's the FBI and stuff. And they cut to the gay playwright guy talking about how it it was all harassment and like terrorism. Like this guy is writing for a Chinese newspaper in the country illegally and using a fake name.
Yeah.
And the
so
FBI
it was very
just
likely he was in fact a spy. They had good reason to knock on his door.
If he wasn't a spy, okay, great, good for him. But I mean, the idea that he was just being like targeted because he was Chinese is absurd. But that's how this is being presented. Yeah. Even presenting all the facts, they're saying like, oh, this is just like evil white racists, like, and these poor immigrants. Just like, no, there's a very good reason why he was being investigated by the FBI.
Yeah. Documentaries
but they want to show it through the eyes of his daughter, like, oh, white Americans so scary, so oppressive. It's like, and then I watch grandma and mom watching this, and I'm like, are you guys buying this? And they're buying it. So it's like the crap is working. They're shoveling they can't get down fast enough. So,
well, as it is Memorial Day, I forgot to do this at the top of the show, so I think we should do it. We obviously want to thank all of our fallen soldiers and all of our veterans. Jason, you have anything to say this Veterans Day?
Yes, I just want to thank everyone.
This Memorial Day.
Yeah, exactly.
we were doing a story. We were talking about whether or not we should do a story on this, and now it got into my head, and now I'm messing it up.
Yep. You're one of the squad. You're a squad now, Chris.
I'm not. Me and AOC were like that.
I just want to say, I just want to thank every man and woman that sacrificed their lives to give us freedom and to defend our freedoms. And I just have so much respect and love for the people that have fallen. And I rest in peace to all that have given their life for this country.
Yeah, we've got a beautiful flag at my father's business in Oregon. That was the flag. I think that was laid on the casket of my great uncle. His name is Edward. My father's middle name was Edward, so he got a lot of his stuff. And so we got a nice picture of him also in my father's office. And we read on the back of it, just like last year or something, we found like a little inscription of exactly where he died and how he died and everything. It's a fascinating story. And a real tragedy, because I'm pretty sure he was like the best looking of all the Coles. If you look at the old pictures, like he was the most handsome one, and it's like, darn it, we lost that one. Come on, there's other ones we could have lost. It's a big family. It's a big family.
That's my theory. Like I think we've lost a majority of the best men in the world.
Oh yeah, he was a good man. He was a very good man. But my grandfather, his brother, also a very good man, and all the rest of them. I was very lucky with the family that I came from. All right, so yeah, and also to the veterans who are alive, we also want to thank them. See, this is why I didn't want to do the story, because it's such a kind of a nitpicky thing. Like I think on Memorial Day, you should also recognize the veterans who are alive as well, even though that's not the point.
Well, I think it's a specific day for the ones that have actually sacrificed.
No, but I think other than the families of those who have been lost, who is affected the most by the loss of these men, it's their comrades in arms, right? So so I think that we do celebrate the living veterans in the same way that Anyway,
well, I say it's a net gain because we get 2 days instead of one. So let's keep them
exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, let's get
Chris,
on to the
don't
news.
mix the two.
Jason, I know. You got me all discombobulated with that news story. All right, let's go with the news. What do we got coming up?
Ubisoft. That's how you say it, Chris? Ubisoft.
Well, yeah, I guess I say Ubisoft, but I don't know.
Ubisoft appears to confirm Black Samurai is LGBT in upcoming Assassin's Creed game. Yeah. So what's funny? You know what's funny is like why do they always make the black guys gay?
Yeah, that's true.
Because I think it's because the left. Okay, I genuinely believe that leftist Democrats are racists. I genuinely believe that. And I think that they're scared of black men. And I think that they think of black people as lesser. I think they think of them as animals. I think that they think of them as subhuman. And that's why they're always trying to elevate them. I've talked about this before on the show, right? And then they look at the conservatives who say, no, they should be competing on the same playing field as the rest of us because they're flipping human beings, you morons. We should look at them as individuals, right? I mean, if you actually grow up with black, like I had a buddy that I grew up with is black, and there's a lot of black guys in my school, whatever. All the best athletes, shocking, I know. And
no,
you know, yeah, true story. Popular guys, you know, whatever. But one guy in particular I grew up with, really good friend of mine, and it's like, if you actually have like a black friend you grow up with and you buddy around with you riding bikes together or whatever, you don't really think too much about them being black. You think about them being, you know, in my case, the guy's name was Ryan. So you think of him being Ryan, you know, like, you know, think of him as like the black guy, you know, my black friend, you think of him as Ryan. And so I think Republicans are kind of like that. You know, we just look at the people, as individuals, and we consider them as individuals. Like, I like that guy, I don't like that guy. Well, maybe they're both black, but you know, you look at them as individuals. Yeah. So, but like, I don't think the left does that, right? And so I think that there's this weird propaganda thing. It's always been true. Like, even in the 1980s, like, let's make America love black people. Let's show black people in the best light possible. And so if you're going to feature a black guy, especially a black guy that commits acts of violence, you know, probably horrific acts of violence, like in this game, you got to soften him somehow, right? And what a better way of softening this guy than making him a fruitcake, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, you know, on top of that, on top of Ubisoft. Good one.
Ubisoft. Nice.
On top of that, like, it's like, who cares if a character in a game is gay or black or that's the last thing on your mind when you want to play a game, you know?
Well, I do. I actually do care because I don't want to see that crap. I'll tell you what.
Exactly. Like why even put that in the story unless it's like some social stupid game or something?
The first thing about it is that they shouldn't have a black samurai in the first place. We talked about this in a previous episode, but like, there was this black guy who was a samurai, and I read up on him, and it turns out that he was more of like, you know, an exotic show of wealth of this wealthy guy who had this, you know, guy in his entourage that was black, and most Japanese people had never seen a black person, so they just looked at him like, whoa, what a weird thing, you know, kind of like something from the freak shows of the circuses back in, you know, 100 years ago. So that's kind of what this guy was. He didn't have this like legendary samurai story that they're pretending that he has in this game. Like, to me, it's kind of like, look, Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft, they've never done like a Japanese themed Assassin's Creed game before. So like, why go in and find the most sort of like obscure like character from history and throw him in?
Isn't this appropriation?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the left is all about like preserving every culture on the planet other than white culture, right? By the way, we got somebody in the comment section called Lars Larson. I'm curious if that's the Lars Larson from the radio show in Oregon. I doubt it. Maybe it's just the same name, but there's a guy back from Oregon. He's got a radio show, conservative guy, good guy. I've talked to him a few times, and I doubt it's the same guy. But anyway, look. So they shouldn't even have this guy in the game. It should be historically accurate story. You know, obviously it can be a fiction. Of course, it's got to be, because I don't know if you've ever played Assassin's Creed games, but they always have this sort of like, he spells his name differently. Okay, thanks, Lars. But they have this historically, you know, they have this. It's kind of like a historically anachronistic weaponry and stuff like that. They always have these kind of like advanced weapons. It's almost like a little bit steampunk or something like that. So they're always twisting history a little bit, but a lot of the reason that people like to envelop themselves in these games is they're enveloping themselves in the worlds of that era of history in that location. And if you do something like this, I don't know. To me, it's like, look, I don't mind. Why don't you? You know, the problem is I don't think that they could do a game with like a black character because Africans didn't develop civilization in the same way that other places did. You know, they've got they've got a Greek game. Sorry, go on.
How Japanese can you be then, like samurai? Like who else in history has the history of being a samurai or the samurai? I mean, but they put a black guy in it. Like I mean, these lefties should be pissed off. You know, they're always complaining about appropriation this and appropriation that. Like,
yeah, but
hypocrisy is incredible. By the way, Chris. By the way, I think this is something like the first. Maybe it's like a first computer game where they put a black man in a skirt like they do in Hollywood. So it's a rite of passage. It's a rite of passage.
What could be more shameful for a black guy than having to dress up like a Japanese guy? Honestly, it's like, nah, man, I don't want to wear this. All right, I have to.
Well, you know what's interesting is like when I was growing up, a lot of black guys liked Bruce Lee. A lot of black guys liked Japanese culture, Asian culture.
About black people loving Bruce Lee and Asian culture in the.
Oh, there's a movie about this.
Yeah, The Last Dragon. There's this guy, Bruce Leroy, is his name, and he actually dresses up full on Chinese.
Bruce Leroy
with the pointy hat and everything. Yeah. It's called The Last Dragon. It's from the mid '80s classic, but it's
the main character is black too. Like it's a black cast in that movie.
Yeah, it's a black cast. It's Berry Gordy. It's a black movie. It's basically like a PG-ish blaxploitation movie, but it's sort of like got a family angle, but it also kind of rides the PG-13 line with like innuendo and stuff. It's a fun movie.
See, now that would be a great Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah, or something like that.
They should do that for Assassin's.
Maybe a
like
GTA game, Grand Theft Auto Bruce Leroy game.
There's so many directions Assassin's Creed could go, if they want, but they got to go with the woke nonsense. All right,
supposedly they didn't want to do this premise. I think
we've got a super chat here. I'm going to interrupt you because you're interrupted me, so I'm going to interrupt you. We got a super chat here. Half Power Concrete and Semperfied Crawfish Company says that Nancy Pelosi joint was fire. Well, thank you very much. I posted today. I think was it today or yesterday?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know.
Today.
See, my time zone is all messed up.
It was today.
Earlier today, I posted a video about Nancy Pelosi getting wrecked to her face. If you haven't seen that, please go watch it. And by get wrecked, I mean she was in a debate, and the guy who debated her, the former banjo player for Mumford & Sons, who knew that he was a good debater, but he is. And he went to Oxford Union and debated Nancy Pelosi and just absolutely obliterated him. Eerie Fairy Tales jumps in. She says it was almost a 40-minute video. Yeah, sorry it was so long, guys. I didn't mean for it to get that crazy. It just happened to be that's what it ended up being. But
I have the opposite. I'm the one lone person that has an opposite view of that. I don't think she lost at all.
Really?
Yep.
I know Jason gets all hung up on like one or two things that the guy said, and he's like,
the guy approved of that January 6th was a insurrection.
Yeah, he's wrong on one point.
But that's their thing.
Did you watch the whole thing? Did you watch the rest of it?
Yes, but that one thing,
the rest of it?
That one thing kills the whole argument for me.
You're such a pedant, Jason. Everything has to be exactly as Jason wants it. Otherwise, I'm not listening to it. I don't care. I hate everything.
Hey, if you say January 6th was if you agree to January 6th was an insurrection, then Nancy Pelosi was right.
Well, I don't think he said it was an insurrection. What he said was it was a dark day. And I actually agree that it was a dark day. I just don't agree with why it was a dark day. It's a dark day because it was a psyop. You know,
exactly.
Now, I presume that the reason he's saying it's a dark day is because there was political violence, right? And Tucker Carlson says the same thing. He's like, I'm going to condemn political violence no matter what side it comes from. If you look a little bit deeper into the whole January 6th thing, it's not clear who initiated the violent actions exactly. Were there some hostile agitators in the crowd, like that were brought in by the FBI? Were there actual Trump supporters who were being violent? I think probably there were a couple of Trump supporters that were being violent. It's very difficult for us to know that because, all the people who want us to believe that it was an insurrection have been lying so much about it. It's impossible to actually parse who was in the wrong there. And we don't have any information about who was a plant, who was there as an agitator and who wasn't. So it's really difficult to sit here and say, how effective the whole PSYOP was. right? What were their actual Trump supporters doing nasty things? Now, for me, I give everybody there that was an actual genuine patriot supporting Donald Trump, I give them all a pass. Because once you get the FBI in there agitating the crowd, to me, it all becomes entrapment after that. You know,
and the only violence that day was a violence against Trump supporters.
You mean the only death?
Well, the violence against them, exactly. They shot and killed one person. They threw gas at crowds.
There was scuffling. There was obviously scuffling between police and the crowd.
Well, the police against the crowd
later. Yeah. Well, but anyway, but the only person who was shot and killed was obviously a Trump supporter, which was tragic. Ashley Babbitt, and who was also a veteran, by the way.
Yep.
But anyway, Anyway, but I appreciate that that people like this. It's doing relatively well. This video, people seem to like it. I'm getting a lot of good comments, except from Jason, the pedant.
I'm the one downvote, the one negative, the thumbs down guy.
He's the a-hole that goes on my channel and downvotes everything. All right, let's move on to the next news story.
Okay,
we love you anyway, Jason, even though you're wrong.
You know, negative. I'm a negative Nancy. You know, we talked about that the other night. Representative. Go ahead, Kurt. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's incredible. They're only one story in, but we talked about the documentary stuff for a bit there. I was like, how did it take us half an hour to do one story? Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, we went into the.
I'm obviously not helping.
And Kurt, when you told me that story about the Japanese or the Asian documentary last night, somehow it was much shorter. Once you get on camera, the story's just. All right, Chase, let's go on to the next story. Let's go on to the next story.
I don't know what to tell you.
End wokeness posted on X. Representative Jasmine Crockett brags about how she snuck in new FAA funding for more Black people and Hispanic pilots.
Oh, yeah, this is terrible. Let's just go ahead and watch this chick and her nastiness.
I think that I've been somewhat effective. We also were able to get monumental legislation into the FAA Reauthorization Act that really flew under the radar, thank God. But this was funding to make sure that hopefully we can increase the number of African Americans and Hispanics that are entering aviation, which can be very expensive, but can obviously be very lucrative. And so we set up a situation where basically there will be full rides for those attending land grant HBCUs as well as HSIs to go into aviation. In this crazy anti-DEI environment, we were able to get that done because we were working with everybody that mattered. So I do want people to know that we are working. This is just one of those aberrations. I think.
I'm not sure what an aberration is, but look, this.
I think she was saying aberration.
Yeah, she did say aberration, but I don't know what that. Is that a word? Aberration?
Isn't that like
aberration?
When a ghost or something appears or something?
Oh, that's an apparition. Apparition with a P.
Yeah. No. That's why she has freedom now.
What?
Oh, abolition. Apparition.
Aberration. I'm not really sure what she meant, but there's a word that she was intending to say. I think it's aberration, I think is what she meant. But look, this needs to be illegal. Every instance of any kind of government money going to a specific race needs to be illegal. Okay? I don't care about any of this crap that happened in history. All right? Like, you know, this drives me crazy. We have conditioned everyone in America, but mainly the left, but like lots of people, even conservatives, believe this, that Black people were so oppressed for so long that we need to just give them money at every opportunity.
Yes, and history started yesterday for them.
Yeah, and even like Asians with the whole, like the documentary you're talking about, Kurt, where, you know, Japanese were sent to internment camps or the Chinese were treated poorly on the railroads. It's like, look, every group of immigrants had their turn being crapped on, right? Like the Germans as well. The Germans had a really hard time. My ancestors had a really hard time coming here. The Scots, the Irish. I'm Scottish. My grandfather was Scottish. So like every group had their turn with like bad stuff. But because a lot of the people who were, maybe cruel to the immigrants were white, suddenly we cast all white people as the abusers and all people of color as the abused, even though like if you look at Asian people now, they tend to do better in America than white people. So obviously we don't have a system that's set up against them. You know what I mean? Like
story coming up.
Yeah, exactly. So this whole idea that like, we owe everybody everything, it just drives me crazy. This is just a con, is all it is. Just a con. Yeah, let's try to shift money to this particular special interest group, and then they're just going to keep voting for us because we keep shoveling money at them. It's a bribe, it's a con, and this needs to be illegal. And I think they should set it up to that when you put that kind of legislation into a bill, you go to prison. That's how it needs to be. Like right now, there's no consequences for it. So of course they're going to try to do this crap. They're going to try to get away with it. Anyway, that's my take on it. What do you think, Kurt?
Oh, I mean, I agree. And you mentioned how Asians are doing well in this country. They're basically like, okay, we got too many of you guys in these colleges. We're going to exclude you from colleges and bring in people that fit a different demographic, that don't have the same test scores, that don't actually compete on an even playing field with you. And right now,
we'll get to the test scores. You just
China
wait.
China right now is actually crumbling. Like they're doing terrible because they're a communist country, and that system doesn't work. So you have all these Chinese people that were flirting with the idea of sort of like dipping one toe into capitalism. They invested all their money, so they believed in the dream of China, and now they're just like, oh, what's going on? Like we're faltering here. So it's just like, yeah, it's sort of the same deal with Africans. It's like, okay, you can complain all you want about, you're being treated unfairly or discriminated against, or whatever in this country. Just like, would you rather live in Africa? If you're a Chinese person who was born in this country, would you rather live in China? Like, you can say that about maybe Japan might be the exception. Like Japan,
I think that's actually the ultimate point, is that even though slavery was a bad thing and civil rights maybe made life a little bit difficult for these guys, the black families who came here on the slave ships ultimately benefited. Like they were able to live in America. If you want to be somewhere where your family has the potential to succeed in the world, you want to be in America. Yeah. If your family is coming up in Africa, your chances of success are far slimmer than if they're coming up here in America. But there's no gratitude for that, because the way they came here was obviously not ideal. It was, in fact, sometimes you could consider it like a terrible way to come here. But they got here. They're here. They should be grateful that they're Americans. I don't know. What are you thinking about this, Jason?
Well, I can't wait to fly Soul Plane with Snoop Dogg as the pilot. Can't wait. That's gonna be awesome.
Okay. If you want Snoop
the
Dogg
movie, if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, it's that movie. Remember that movie? That would be a great experience.
Didn't the plane actually like bounce at some point? Like,
it had like huge rims, and I'm looking forward to this.
This should also be Jason, in the next what is it called? Assassin's Creed game.
Jason, if you want Snoop Dogg to be the pilot of your plane, you must be higher than he is. Who would not want Snoop Dogg to be flying a plane?
I don't know if that's possible.
Oxygen comes down, and it's not oxygen; it's just weed smoke.
I think that was in the movie. Actually, I think that was in the movie.
Was it really? Okay. Well, now I haven't seen this movie. It sounds.
I guess I'm the only one who has not seen this film.
No, I haven't either. But apparently, it's genius, because I can think of the jokes they were making.
But to go back on your point, Chris, about coming here, like a big amount of white people too didn't come here in great circumstances too. There was a thing called indenture servitude. Right. Half the whites came here as slaves as well.
But not just that, but just being a poor white person in the 16th, 17th century, 17th century, 18th century, was incredibly difficult. Many families starved to death and died. We are talking about the end of somebody's genetic line just dying off because their whole family dies.
And not to mention,
telling me that this wasn't as bad as being a slave. To me, is
and not to mention,
not as bad.
Before Chris was talking over me, so a lot of whites came here in indentured servitude, which was horrible. It was bad. Not only that, the whites were the few people to actually go to the outskirts, to the outer borders of the country at the time, and they were the ones sacrificing their lives with the Native Americans, sacrificing their life with disease and all that stuff outside. And
that's such a good point, man. Yeah.
For their sacrifices, this is our country is what it is today. So I mean,
and for our sacrifice,
and it's the same. I'll give credit to the blacks too. It's the same with them. Like they were slaves, they worked the fields, they did all that. So it was. Like this is something that everybody should be proud of. We
should be proud to be Americans.
Yes, we went through so much. We've conquered those issues, and now we can all get along. Can't we all just get along?
I did a video a while back called "Slave Owners Were Not Bad People," and the whole video, and I titled it that because I thought it was a very provocative title. But if you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend it. It's basically just me reading the accounts of former slaves. So back in the very early 20th century, there were a lot of former slaves. They were now very, very old, right? The 80s and 90s. But these people went out and they interviewed these former slaves, and they said, what was it like to be a slave? What was it like, back then? And, a lot of these slaves, this blew me away. A lot of these slaves, not only did they respect the slave owners, they took pride in saying that their slave owner was a good man. And in fact, almost all of the reports that I read, I think there was one where the guy was like, no, I didn't like being a slave. But one guy, but he had made a lot of money. He had made a lot of money since slavery. So he was like, oh, it's much better to be free. You can make money. Basically everybody else was like, no, it was way better being a slave. I hate being free. It was crazy. And not only that, but these guys were there were stories where these people were like, oh yeah, we just went back and had, we traveled back down to where my former slave master lives, and we stayed with them for a few days, and we had Christmas dinner, and we all had an enjoyable Christmas together. It's like, wait, what? You're going back to your slave master's plantation to go have Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it was, as family? What the hell is this? Crazy. We have such a distorted view of what it was to be a slave and a slave master. We don't think about this, but these people lived with their slaves, and they saw them every day, and they worked with them every day. And sometimes Caucasians are awesome, quote unquote, Jason. This is from Hoff Power Concrete and Simplified Crawfish Company. She's quoting Jason now. I don't remember you saying that, Jason, but I like it. Caucasians are awesome. But I'm saying there was love there. There was actually a real love that some of these slave masters had for their slaves, and vice versa. There was one guy who got married, and he was raised by a nanny, right, who was black, right, who was a black slave. She raised this boy, this white boy, and he grows up and he meets this woman and he marries her, and then he dies. And then every week after that, the wife would go and meet with this nanny. Now, she wasn't raised by this woman, but she loved her husband, and her husband was raised by this woman. So, and the nanny obviously loved this boy like her son. So she would meet with this woman all the time, and they would just talk and stuff. And it was they loved each other and they cared about each other. And it's we don't get that view of history through their movies. Well, what do we get? We get Roots. Roots ruined our view of slavery, because Roots made us all believe that miniseries from the 80s made us all believe that every slave situation was a horror movie. And that's the only way anybody thinks about slavery anymore. I think it's a disgrace.
Not only Roots, with that new one that what's his name from Tarantino made, that annoying one too, and all those movies have to be but You know,
but Roots started.
Let's take slavery back then. Yeah. What would you have rather been, a black slave in the United States or a black slave in the Middle East,
or Africa,
or Africa? Exactly.
Yeah, it was better here than anywhere, probably. Yeah. I agree with you. All right, let's move on to the next story. This is too dark and we kind of got off track a little bit. I don't know. Sorry, I can rant. You know me.
Christina Hoff Summers posted, earnings for Asian women surpass white male earnings for the first time this year. Asian privilege, female privilege, narrative destabilizing development.
I love this because like a lot of people posted this graph and talked about this, but I've happened to spend a couple of days with Christina Hoff Summers once. An amazing woman. Absolutely think she's fantastic. If you don't follow her on Twitter, you should. She's great.
Get her on the show.
I should get her on the show, actually. Maybe we will. But anyway, yeah. So I think this is a graph that goes to 2020, but it's something that we haven't seen before. I haven't seen it popularly distributed on any social media, but now it's getting out there that Asian women since about 2020 have been making more money than white men. And that, we've always believed that there's this wage gap because of racism, because of sexism, because the straight white men have this, we all have this conspiratorial patriarchy where we're like, oh, is that a woman? We've got to make sure she makes less than the men in the office, This stereotype of the racist, sexist, vicious straight white male is such a fantasy of the left. It's such a fantasy, but it's an illusion that they believe. It's an illusion that's become a delusion, and it's about time, I think, that we end this. And this graph, guys, you should keep a picture of this in your pocket, so that every time you meet a leftist who complains about feminism or the wage gap, just pull that out and be like, look at that. See that? Look, you just made that up, and go, nope, look it up. It's real.
It's rigged.
This is, yeah. Anyway, what do you think about this, Jace? I'll put you on the spot just as you're getting a drink. You see how I do that? Yeah. That's planned.
I'll pass it on to the male Asian.
Kurt. It's very petty. Very petty.
Hot Concrete and Simplified Crawfish Company is starting to understand us. He writes, "Cock Asians are awesome." Dash Kurt.
Yes. We do like this guys around here, at least Chris.
This guy's coming up with our lines for us. I love it.
That should have been the title of the show.
Caucasian. Anyway, go, Kurt. What are you thinking about this?
Oh, geez. Well, it's
if you got nothing, we just can move on to the next story. Just go nothing. Move on to the next story.
Okay, nothing. Move on to the next story.
Well,
I think as someone with an Asian mother, like what Asian?
You said we were going to move on, and I'm about to talk, and then go ahead.
Hey! You threw it to me because you had nothing, and then I come with something. You're just like, shut up, Kurt. Okay, go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like the left will their argument will be like, well, Asian women are not people of color, so.
Right. They exclude like them from the group at this point. Yeah.
Go ahead,
anyway, Kurt. What were you thinking? With a mother who's an Asian woman.
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
you're rich. Are you rich, Kurt?
Damn. I do okay.
Well, no, I meant your mom.
Well, I don't really pay attention to Asian women because they're like the least exotic women in my mind. It's just like,
yeah, true.
So it's like,
okay, you live in Hawaii.
Asian women are doing well for themselves. Just like, yeah, it makes sense because they're not oppressed, and in fact, they're probably benefiting from inclusive sort of like programs and things like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they have the motivation and they have the ability, and I feel like it's kind of representative of the trend of white men being excluded from things. So if you have groups that, and you, Chris, sometimes you like to talk about like IQ and things like that. So if you can do the job and you're willing to do the job, hey, that's all that matters to business. So at the end of the day, you have all this diversity hiring, like we want lesbians, we want black people, we want this, that, the other. At the end of the day, somebody has to do the dang job. And apparently they're doing it because they're staying employed and they're making money. So,
well, you make such a great point, because if you can't hire the best, like let's say the best people of in a particular field are white men, and you can't hire them because, you know, whatever, the DEI crap, you got to hire somebody of color. Well, you go to the next best thing, right? So if you find somebody who's a female Asian and they're competent, well, you've just ticked off 2 boxes, right? Female check, Asian check, and now you get your 2 diversity quotas in there, and you can bring that person in. So
if
it
you
makes
have
sense
to hire a certain amount of minorities, like, what are you going to choose, a Cuban?
Exactly. Jason, that was a dig at you. You weren't paying attention. I was very specifically targeted.
Maybe if it's like a swim coach position or something, but other than that,
yeah.
Jeez.
I'll rewind later and watch it and have a laugh. Okay.
All right. Well, but here's the interesting thing that occurred to me when I was looking at this. Like, there is such a distinction. No offense to Jason, because his wife is Caribbean, so she doesn't actually count as a Black American woman.
Exactly.
But in American culture, in the 1980s, there were 2 kinds of Black women, right? There was like the sassy Black women. Oh no, you didn't. And then there was like the sweet, friendly, smiley Black woman who was ironically best epitomized by Whoopi Goldberg. Weirdly, I mean, you look at her today and you wouldn't know it, but back then she was actually quite cute and bubbly and fun.
She was the original Ellen.
Kinda, yeah. But the thing is, like, the sassy Black woman seems to have won out, because how often do you go to like a bank teller and you're like, oh, can I take some money out? And she's like, I guess, why are you disrespecting me? This kind of crap. And it's like, why do you have a chip on your shoulder? Why are you angry all the time? Like, every Black woman I ever run into in life. I mean, I know some Black women who are actually awesome.
What gets me, the worst, the one that pisses me off the most is when you go to buy something and you're at the cash register and they just blank face, don't say a word. It's like,
oh yeah, or they're talking
reaction
to the girl behind her. They got somebody in the booth next to them and they're just chatting it up with them and just ignoring the customers. That's insane to me. But you get this kind of attitude, like, you better show me some respect, and everything is like, no, you didn't. Hell no. Everything's negative and bitchy and nasty and angry. This is like Black female culture in America now. This has become universal almost. Like I said, I do know some amazing Black women, like when I was working in Hollywood, actresses and whatever, like very nice people. Actually some of my favorite people that I hung out with back in California. But for the most part, the people that I've interacted with, like strangers, have this nasty attitude. Now, Asian women, completely the opposite. I mean, what's the stereotype of like a Japanese woman, right? Demure, respectful, kind, sweet, smiling.
Chris, your perspective
won't look at you.
Woman, Chris's perspective of Asian women cannot be taken seriously because he's an attractive white guy. Of course, all the Asian women are nice to you. Like, Asian women treat me great. Like, yeah, no S, Sherlock.
No, but okay, Kurt.
That's a good point, Kurt. No. Kurt, he's right here. He's got a good point there.
No. Because you got to admit, though, I do think that Asians tend to be raised with a certain degree of respectfulness. Maybe not in Hawaii, but in Asia, there's a certain amount of respect that they're taught. But there is a kind of certain respect that they're taught to respect people in society generally. The same as how I was taught when I was growing up. You respect people that you meet in society. You're polite to people. You're kind to people. That's like the Christian ethic. But I think a lot of Asian cultures, it's the same, right? And so I don't think it's a huge surprise that people want to work with intelligent, charming, sweet people as opposed to nasty, angry people with a bad work ethic. I think that this is such a cultural distinction. And it's like, this is stuff that we're obviously not allowed to talk about. But I think that this is true. I think that if you just shift the culture a little bit, anybody can be successful in America. We got another super chat here from
Chris,
Off Power Concrete and Semperfied Crawfish Company. Don't interrupt me when I'm doing a super chat. Never interrupt me when I'm doing a super chat. And he says, my entire concrete crew is Asian women. Beasts. I don't believe that for a second, but that's pretty funny. I love it. I love it. Sorry, Jason. What were you gonna say?
I forgot now.
All right, let's move on to the next story. If you think about it, if you remember.
I remember. I was gonna say.
Right.
So yeah, when you interact with black females and you finally get that one that's like, oh, thank you very much. How's your day? It's like, whoa. Like, man, this is awesome. You know,
you hear like a chorus of angels singing.
No, I'll go home and I'll tell my wife. I'll tell my wife, guess, you know what happened today? There was actually a nice woman in the cash register today. You know, like, it's
You're
something you take
Jason.
home.
You're killing me.
No, it's
I
true.
love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's true.
Okay, so moving on.
That should be a stand-up bit, Kurt. We got to get a stand-up bit going, and that's going to be one of the bits. Do you guys ever meet a black woman who's nice? It's like crazy, you know. That's a good bit.
All right, so a failed man today. Like what is it? Like race day today? The toxic masculinity is all about race today. A failed medical school.
Don't worry. It'll get into gayness soon.
This is my fault. I picked this story.
A failed medical school. How racial preferences supposedly outlawed in California have persisted at UCLA.
Yeah, this is actually kind of a terrible story. Hold on one second. I got to find it here. Yeah, there we go.
And it actually kind of comes back to what you were saying before, Chris. There's one thing to have laws and something to enforce the laws. Like theoretically,
Right.
there are all these laws and they create new ones, hundreds of new ones every year. But if they're not enforced, they don't really matter, do they?
Right. Well, so but what happened with this story is like UCLA used to be like is it UCLA?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
UCLA.
Actually, I used to live right next to UCLA, in Westwood. UCLA. So it used to be one of the best medical schools in the country. In fact, even like in LA, it's like renowned because they have this research part of the school that's just amazing. This paragraph here, I think, explains it best. They says within 3 years of Lacero's hiring, so there's this woman named Lacero who apparently is like the head of the faculty or something. She basically determines who gets admitted, and they admit like very, very few people. You know, there's like thousands and thousands of people apply to this school, and they only select a very, very few. But she's been saying like, we need black people in our school. And this is not only illegal nationally since the Supreme Court case, but it's been illegal in California for like a decade or something like that, for like a long time.
1996, apparently.
Yeah, California said no racial stuff. We're not allowed to bring in race into it, which had a different effect than they expected, right? Because what ended up happening is there's a lot more Asian and white people and a lot fewer black people. But they kept this. This has been law for a long time, so it's illegal for them to do this. And yet this woman is doing it. And a lot of the faculty are like, why is she doing this? This is illegal. They've been talking about it. But anyway, so they've been doing it anyway. They've been bringing in a bunch of unqualified students because this woman is obsessed with blackness. You know, Jason, you ask why we talk about race on the show so much. I would love never to talk about race ever again. That's my dream, actually. But you know what? The damn left are so obsessed with race that we got these stupid stories all the time in the news. So within 3 years of this woman's hiring in 2020, UCLA dropped from the 6th best medical school, research school in the country to the 18th place for medical research. And in some of the in some of the cohorts, she admitted more than 50% of the students. I don't know what the cohorts means. 50% of the students failed standardized tests on emergency medicine, family medicine, internal medicine, and pediatrics. And they got a lot of other examples of students not knowing basic medical stuff. I read through the whole story.
This is what the left does. They ruin everything. They take everything, like they make everything bad. They cause problems. They cause issues. You know, like and all in the name of like diversity or they think they're fighting against wrongs, you know, but at the end of the day, what they're doing is destroying everything and making it worse and causing problems and life-threatening problems because like,
life-threatening problem. Imagine getting a black doctor now. I just jumped in for half a second. Okay, it wasn't like a real interruption. It was. I just injected a little bit of an idea. You can keep talking.
No, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
You guys complain too much. Go ahead,
Chris.
I just said, imagine getting a black doctor at this point when we know, like, that they have lower standards than everybody else. Would you, Jason? Would you take your family to see a black doctor this point?
When I walk in a plane, let me just put it this way: when I walk in a plane, and I look at the pilot, and I think I mentioned this before in another show, and when I see a white older pilot, I'm comfortable. I'm good. I'm like, okay, good. Like,
yeah.
I mean, because now the way things are going, they've created this mess. So now actually they're creating this race thing in people's heads now, like all this stuff that's coming out. So they're actually making the world. Yeah. They've achieved something. They've made everybody think about race now, and it's sad. It's sad because I would say 20 years ago, if you saw a black man pilot, you didn't care. You thought, okay, they picked the best. This guy had to go through everything to become this pilot. Now it's like, same with doctors, pilots. Now you have to second guess it, and I hate that. I hate that they did that.
Yeah, exactly. And the worst part is, obviously there are some black doctors who are amazing. Like, there are some black pilots probably who are amazing. But the thing is, like, because of the diversity hiring, because of the DEI, everybody's going to look at those amazing doctors with suspicion for the rest of their lives now. They're going to think, was this person qualified for the position? Or did this person get a leg up because they're black? Like, Joe Biden just went and, I don't know if you guys saw that. I think we talked about it on the show. He went on this rambling speech about, he went to like some historically black college. I think it was, I forget what it's called. Anyway, he went to this historically black college. He said, you guys are all oppressed. White people hate you. And, you have to work 10 times as hard as anybody else to succeed. And you still won't succeed because racism. And it's like, shut the hell. What is wrong with you? But it's also just wrong. Like, everything he said was wrong, especially the thing about, like, you have to work 10 times as hard as a black person. This article proves that the opposite is true. You have to work 1/10 as hard as if you're a black person, you have to work 1/10 as hard as a white person to get the same place at a university.
Yeah, this was purposely done. They know what they were doing, the left. Because like Avery said, it's not even fair to them. Like, it's not even fair to
it's terrible.
Hispanic people, to black people. Like, it's not fair because the smart ones that actually
yes,
like the Biden said, there are some smart ones, right? But the ones that really the ones that really deserve,
black kids are just as bright and just as smart as white kids.
Yeah,
Wait, no, sorry, I messed that
poor
up.
Kids. Poor kids.
Poor kids are just as bright as white kids.
Which means to him, everybody but the white kids are, which means every other race. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, it's like, it's so unfair to them because it's quite an achievement to come from, like, you come from poverty or you come from a minority. Yeah. It's quite an achievement to succeed, to become a doctor, to become a pilot, without any of those it was given to you
advantages.
So
Look,
the people that actually deserve it, are getting looked at in a certain way that they don't deserve that. And man,
right,
to hell with these lefties. They freaking destroy everything.
They ruin everything. They really do.
If you're a black person that calls it out, then the left calls you the black face of white supremacy.
Uncle Tom. Yeah, the black face of white supremacy. Yeah,
it's so disgusing. But
it's purposely done. They want to bring back racism. They want to bring this. They want to bring that. But you know what? I'm hoping, because I think we can see it now, even with that when Trump was speaking in Bronx, you can actually see that some of them are waking up and they're realizing what's going on. So I'm hoping that this is all working against them.
I gotta say, I actually love black conservatives. I'm a little biased toward blacks. I think we all are a little bit, because if you think about it, they are actually oppressed, right? Like, they're actually, like, the kind of crap that they say society gives to black people, like, oh, society oppresses you with systemic racism and all this kind of stuff. Actually, they oppress the black conservative. Like, black conservatives you really have to be a principled person to stand up to the left and say, you know what? I disagree with you, because there's so much pressure as a black person to vote for the left and to be a leftist and just go along and be a sheep. There's so much pressure for those guys. So much respect. If you're a black conservative, we love you on this show. All right, Jason. And by the way, 2 words just to sum this whole thing up: Ben Carson. You know, he's lucky because he's famous. Everybody knows he's actually a genius surgeon. But every other Ben Carson that there is out there in America, they are forever going to be looked at with suspicion because of DEI. It is a deathly, it means didn't earn it. That's what it means. And people look at that. Look at those black people now, and they think you didn't earn it. No, that's a popular thing now on Twitter. But yeah, they're looking at these guys, even if they do deserve it, and they're thinking diversity hire, which is sad and sick and twisted, and it shouldn't be like that. All right, Jason, next story. He wasn't ready.
Trump. On that note, we can't replace Chris with an Asian woman soon enough, as far as I'm concerned. Yes. To do the same job, it'll probably be cheaper and interrupt less. Jason and I will be joining the show. We'll throw it to her. She'll be very demure.
No,
anyway,
what you and Chris need to do is marry Asian. That's it.
All right, let's go to the next story.
Too late for me, but you and Chris can.
You know who I date. Come on, get real.
It's for the money. It's for the money. Trump roast libertarians at their own convention after they start booing him. Enjoy your 3% every 4 years. I love this. Was so great. I was cracking up, laughing so hard when I was watching this. I mean, Trump went to the Libertarian convention, man. Like, who does that? Like what can't this is why this guy's special. Like, what
this was amazing.
Went to another party's convention. I hope he goes to the Democrat convention. I know they won't let him, but
well, because it would have been such a big news story if the Libertarians had nominated Trump.
The Libertarian Party should nominate Trump for president of the United States. Whoa, that's nice.
I love
some are cheering and some are booing. You know? But Trump's reaction
only
is
if you want to win. Only if you want to win. Maybe you don't want to win. Maybe you don't want to win. Thank you, D-Roy. Thank you. No, only do that if you want to win. If you want to lose, don't do that. Keep getting your 3% every 4 years. The reasons for doing so, policy and politics, are as solid as the Hope Diamond.
Beautiful.
Okay, I messed that up.
I love the fact that they're booing.
Yes.
it makes it even better because how you're
relevant,
booing.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. You're like booing at being 3%. Like, come on, man. Wouldn't you want?
That is such an epic moment. I don't know how Trump does it, man. He turns lead into gold. You know, he's like a genius. He goes in there, and he's like, all right, guys, come on. We got to be friends. We got to like work together here. And they're like, boo, boo. And Trump's like, all right, you want to go? Let's go. Boom, boom. Knocks him right out.
Yep.
Like, just like, whew, it just like, and it gets on all the news. Because,
but you know what's great about that, Chris? You know what's great that he got on all the news because he was getting on the news for being booed. But when people watch it, they're actually gonna realize he won. He actually won this thing.
That's exactly what I was
even the legacy media can't even comprehend the genius of Trump.
Right. Well, because he goes in there and the thing is, like, imagine if Biden had gone there and they booed him. He would have no idea what to do. He'd mumble something about
come on, man. Come on, man.
Yeah, he'd go, come on, man, and then he'd poo himself, and then he'd waddle off stage and not know where the exit was. That's exactly what he would have no comeback. He might be angry. Maybe he'd whisper a little bit into the microphone, and then he'd be really angry and yell.
He'll probably say something like, "Oh, I can do more push-ups than anybody in here."
Yeah. Dog face pony soldier. Yeah. He'd say some dark Brandon nonsense.
Dark Brandon would go down his pant leg, probably.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then but Trump comes out there and he says what Trump says isn't just a good response to a heckle or whatever. It's the truth.
Yep,
it's the truth. It resonates. People listen to that, and you know what's crazy is the next story. Go for it, Jason, because it's related. It's related.
Libertarian Party chooses nominee who supports open borders. Drag queen story hour. There you go. Trump was on point.
They picked a total lefty lunatic as their nominee for the Libertarian Party. Like, who is it? This guy is not a libertarian. He's a leftist.
Yes,
he's
exactly.
He's like a gay leftist. Look at this dude.
Man, the libertarians like to be made out as fools so much. You know, I don't know. Like
this guy. Look at this guy's a joke. This guy is a joke. They brought.
What's wrong with libertarians? They're like, I thought they were like less government. You know, man, wow. For 1 second, I thought about being a libertarian, and then I was like,
what happened to Kurt?
I did my. I think he went to the bathroom again. So yeah, I thought about being a libertarian once, and I did my research, and I was like, these people are kind of a little kind of off or something, you know. Like I agree with a lot of what they say, but let's get real here. They don't have any influence.
The problem with the Libertarian, party or the Libertarian people is that it's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum. It's not really.
I think I'm cool. I'm libertarian. Look at me. I'm cool.
A lot of people are like that. A lot of libertarians are like that. They just want to be like iconoclasts, essentially. But like, if you talk to one libertarian, he might be like Ron Paul or Rand Paul, who are essentially conservatives, but with a sort of like this extreme small government.
That's why I thought about. That's why I thought about being a libertarian, because Ron Paul. Because when Ron Paul was running for president, I supported him.
Yeah. No, I love Ron Paul. I love Rand Paul. I love them both. But then like a lot of libertarians are like this guy who's basically just a leftist, right? Who just calls himself a libertarian, because the left really wants to legalize a lot of stuff that the conservatives don't want legalized. Legalize prostitution. It's not prostitution. It's sex work. They want to legalize all kinds of hard drugs and everything. Well, the libertarians want that too. So there's some overlap, between the Democrats and the libertarians. The conservatives and libertarians also have some overlap. And so, depending on what side of the libertarian spectrum you're on, you might be more of a leftist or might be more of a conservative. So to say like I'm libertarian or libertarianism is like, the way forward, is it kind of, because it's such a nebulous term, libertarianism. But this guy is not a libertarian. This guy's a leftist. And it's ridiculous to me that they would nominate such a clown for their party. They could have had Trump. They could have been on the Trump team against Biden. But here's the good thing about this. A lot of people on Twitter are now openly going, okay, I'm a libertarian.
Yes,
but not anymore. I'm voting for Trump. Screw this guy. Whoever it is, who is the idiot that chose this guy? Forget that. I'm no longer a libertarian. I'm a conservative. I'm voting for Trump. I'm a Republican. Because they realize that the libertarian thing is kind of a joke at this point.
I think they're just like the Democrats. I think just because Trump did what he did, they have to go against it. so anything that Trump does, people have to go against on the other side.
Right.
What do you mean did what he did?
Go to the convention and speak and
ask
for pretty much ask for their support. So like I think their convention, whatever. I think it's rigged, just like the way Democrats rig theirs. I don't think they have the full support.
I do think it was like
it's pretty crazy.
A weird reaction to Trump going to their convention. It was like, oh, you're going to come to our convention? Well, then we're going to bring in the most lefty libertarian we can find as our nominee. Like, why would you do that? Why would you be such a dick? You know, it's like they're trying to be contrarian. They're trying to be iconoclastic. They're just coming across as a-holes, you know?
You know what they did on you know, they actually helped Trump because by nominating this lefty
100%.
person, they're not now it's going to go against Biden votes, not Trump votes. Like maybe that's why they did it. Maybe they're actually on our side.
Maybe it's genius. Yeah, maybe libertarians are just geniuses. Yeah. All right, let's move on from this. Let's go to the next story. Unless Kurt,
I think Kurt wanted to say something.
Kurt's
it's not important what you got to say, Kurt. So the next story.
You're too polite. You're both interrupting each other. I'm just trying to wait for my opportunity. Just like next story.
Kurt, you got Asian privilege, so we're going over you.
It doesn't pay to be polite and let these lunatics ramble on forever because then they just forget you're even there. Yeah.
All right, Kurt. Okay, so our apologies. Go on.
I was going to talk about what good points you guys made. But I'm going to skip that now because I hate you. But it's the Libertarian Party kind of seems like the island of misfit toys. They're sort of well, we don't like either of these parties, so we're going to go over here and make our own party. It's like kind of like, okay, guys. So, but that's the thing. It's kind of like a grievance party, like you got the leftists who don't like the leftists, and you've got the conservatives who don't like the conservatives. So then here we go. We're gonna build our own fort, and you guys can't come in. You know, so like okay, so
I look, and I do respect independent thought though.
Yeah. You know, it's Chris.
I'm just
it's Chris.
Look, I can interrupting and interjecting are two different things. I'm just interjecting a little thing to agree with you. Relax.
You're a pro at that, Chris. You're a pro at that.
You guys take offense to everything. Just like chill out, for crying out loud.
Well, when we get interrupted every freaking second.
God, Jason, I'm not interrupting. I'm just interjecting to agree, and then you can carry on. All right. I'm just saying that you're right. Okay, continue, Kurt. Jiminy Christmas, you guys. This is why we don't have any viewers.
Well, I agree with what Jason said.
True.
He was saying that they picked this guy who's like obviously like a lefty type. So it's not going to 3%. It's not going to detract from anybody really. They're basically like we're irrelevant. We're going to stay irrelevant, and it doesn't make any sense to me. What are they trying to do? What is their goal? Are they just sort of like? Is this just like a social club for them? Because politically they don't move the needle.
Right. Well, I had a point, but I've forgotten it because Jason went completely ballistic.
I forgot my previous point too.
Because of the whole interruption craze here. Jason really takes offense to other people interrupting. It's ironic in many ways. But anyway, let's move on to the next story, Jason.
If I think of it, I'll come back to it later.
Butt plug. It came out by accident. It came out by accident. Bleep that, Chris. Buttigieg blames climate change for rise in severe flight turbulence.
Yeah, this is one of the weirdest stories. Like I actually saw him. Yeah, here he is. Let's just play this.
The reality is the effects of climate change are already upon us in terms of our transportation. We've seen that in the form of everything from heat waves that shouldn't statistically even be possible, threatening to melt the cables of transit systems in the Pacific Northwest, to hurricane seasons becoming more and more extreme, and indications that turbulence is up by about 15%. That means assessing anything and everything that we can do about it.
Here in the U.S.
Well, in the atmosphere generally, but certainly something that will affect American travelers, whether here or abroad. Now, there are protocols and patterns for things like how pilots who encounter turbulence can notify those who might be coming in the path, but I do think we need to continually reevaluate that in the face of the reality that these things are more frequent and more severe than before.
That horrific video that people were terrified by when they saw the Singapore Airlines encounter such severe turbulence that actually killed someone, that was rare. But you're saying you do expect to see more incidents like that here in the U.S.?
To be clear, something that extreme is very rare, but turbulence can happen, and sometimes it can happen unexpectedly. Our climate is evolving. Our policies.
This is the stupidest crap. I'm gonna stop. I can't even continue. This is so dumb. Look,
I don't think. I never noticed before,
Yeah,
but he's kind of like if Pee Wee Herman was on Quaaludes. It's sort of like the most boring Pee Wee Herman episode I've ever seen.
I know you are, but what am I?
The word of the day is insomnia. Anyway, go on.
Exactly. So look. There is. I highly doubt that turbulence has increased. First of all, second of all, even if it has increased, is it due to climate change? Who knows? This is probably one of these like ridiculous p-hacked reports that are totally unreliable. But of course, they want to use it. So this is something that we call, it's just fear mongering. Right? They're just fear mongering. This is how the left works. If they can scare you enough, you will vote for them. This is why they constantly say, like, they're going to create a nationwide abortion ban, right? They always say that. Because why? Because they want to scare women into voting for the left. They call it demagoguery. This is what we call in politics. It's called demagoguery. Scare the crap out of everybody. And the really annoying thing is they always say that that's what Trump does, right? They're always like, you know what Trump's doing? He's scaring his base into voting. He's just like instilling fear into the people. Well, of course, that's not what Trump's doing. Trump's telling the truth. You know, he's like, they're like, oh, they're making you scared about the border. You know, we're not going to let in millions of immigrants. Well, actually, yeah, you are. We're not going to give them amnesty. Well, then why do you keep saying our goal is to give them amnesty? Like maybe stop saying that, and we'll stop thinking that that's what you want to do. You idiots. You know, like we're not fear mongering. This is not demagoguery if it's true. But the whole climate change thing is so blown out of proportion. Oh, turbulence is actually a pretty safe phenomenon. It just makes a fairly rough flight. There's only been a couple of cases that I'm aware of that have, where turbulence has actually taken down a big plane. I think turbulence may have taken down, could potentially take down smaller planes from time to time, but it's extremely rare. Like turbulence is like, I don't know, everybody flies, right? Everybody's flown on jets. You get turbulence, it's sometimes a little scary because I was once on a plane that is flying along and then just boom, it just drops. Like, I don't know, it was like 20 feet or something, like instantaneously. That was terrifying, and then the pilot gets on. And what was funny is you could hear everybody talking in the plane, and then it was just silent. Like everybody was just like, "What the heck?"
Everybody went up with their stomach in their throat for a second.
Yeah, and the pilot gets on. And he goes, "Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are experiencing a little turbulence at the moment. If you wouldn't mind putting your seatbelts on, and until the seatbelt light comes off, just stay in your seats, and we'll be getting into smooth air soon." And we're just like, "Really?
Chris,
like, pilots are the best, aren't they?
Is there anything you can't do? I was so calm in that moment when I was hearing you tell me
Yeah.
the turbulence was fine. It's like, oh, thank God.
I should be a pilot. I don't know how to fly the plane, but I can calm down the passengers when we crash.
But if Jason saw you sit in that chair, he'd be happy. That's the important thing.
That's right. I'm an old white guy.
Well, he's not old enough.
No,
you're only saying that because he's literally your age. You don't have the perspective.
I'm a little younger, but I could dye my hair white, and then it would fool people.
We need to figure out how to take advantage of this climate change thing and make some money, man. I'm over fighting against it. We need to start trying to make money from it.
That is true. We got to come up with our own way of scaring people and then profiting off of it, like the Democrats do. It's a brilliant strategy.
The conservatives seem to be more deceptive and unscrupulous in our tactics.
By the way, every time I see Buddha, whatever, I'm like, doesn't he have to breastfeed his child or something? Why is he on TV?
Okay, you guys, I think I've got it. If you do not buy toxic masculinity merchandise, you will go bald and gay. That's a real thing. That's a real thing.
You don't want to wind up like this guy. You want to be like Jason.
Yeah, you see, it happened to Kurt.
Kurt's halfway there. Uh-huh. Anyway, yeah.
Sure, halfway. Jason, I like Jason like a friend. Anyway, go on.
That's all right, let's go to the next story.
Okay.
You're gonna make me cry.
UCLA report: gay people more likely to experience adverse effects of climate change.
Jason to me. Sorry, go on again. What was that again? Jason?
Gay people more likely to experience adverse effects of climate change.
Yeah, what a weird story, right? Like, I did read through this one. Basically, their concept is like gay people tend to live on the coasts, and so if you have like rising seawater, they would get flooded more likely. And they also said that gay people were more likely to live in like areas where there was not sufficient infrastructure or something like that, which is totally BS. That's obviously not true because gay guys tend to live in the cities. So of course they have good infrastructure. Like, what are they talking about? And also gay men statistically make more money than straight men. So they should be fine. Like this is the dumbest.
I was going to say, like it's so horrible being a gay person today. Like they're some of the richest people and they live on coastlines. Wow.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like, I think that in order to,
if you think literally, nobody takes it in the ass more than a gay man, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Kurt, you're up next.
This video's gone.
So anyway, what I was trying to say was
simple fact.
What I was trying to say is that in order to create sympathy, so this is how the Democrats work, by the way. This is my theory anyway. Democrats a long time ago figured out, like once women got the vote, Democrats realized, okay, women don't really think rationally, they think emotionally. And a lot of women in the comment section are going to get mad at me for saying that, but it's true. Okay, there are some exceptions, of course. Margaret Thatcher was awesome. You know, Christina Hoff Sommers, amazing woman. There's tons of amazing women out there.
Women in the comment section, if you want to prove Chris wrong, don't get mad. Keep your emotions in
and not only don't get mad, if you want to prove me wrong, let us know what you think by giving us a super chat. Preferably for $100. Anyway, but no.
We love emotional women money.
Look, the Democrats at one point they figured out women tend to vote with their emotions. They don't really vote with their brains. They're not like thinking through anything logically. They're feeling through everything. They're going, oh, the poor immigrant. They're just trying to save their family by walking through the border. I think that guy murdered 10 people, but he just wants to make a better life for his family, though. You know, like you tell a story to a woman, to many, like not all women, obviously, but there are many women in America. You tell them a story, a sob story, and you got them. That's it. You got them hooked. Republicans haven't really figured out how to do that, you know, because what Republicans think, what conservatives tend to think is, well, if we tell people the truth, they should go, okay, that's the truth. I realize that's the truth because obviously it's the truth. And I'm going to then rationally vote and rationally support policies based on these truths. The Democrats have figured out, but if we tell somebody a more compelling lie than the truth, then people will believe the lie. And they're right. And they do. But you know who does it the most? Women. And so they figured out, if we can tell women that black people are oppressed, if we can tell women that women are oppressed, if we can tell women that gay people are oppressed, well, then the women will just do what we tell them. And then if we say the Republicans aren't wanting to support the gays, then we think, they're the bad guys. But it's starting to become obvious that gay people aren't oppressed anymore. So what do? They got to make up BS like this. Climate change disproportionately affects the gays. Come on. Does anybody really believe it?
In the 50s, they did this thing where they were promoting that Latin men were sexy, and we still haven't got away.
We still haven't gotten rid of that.
That horrible lie. Yeah.
That was another joke specifically directed at you, Jason, if you're paying attention.
Doesn't seem like he is. I think he's
he's off in his own world.
He's identify as a green baseball cap.
I identify as American.
Yeah, yeah.
Fair enough.
Very good. Very good,
Jason.
That's only his prison name.
How'd you know, Chris?
Than a Twinks. Anyway, moving on.
All right, what do you got on this, Jason? What do you got on this story?
What the hell are we talking about?
Yeah.
The gay men who are disproportionately affected by climate change.
Oh yes, of course.
I don't got much about it. I don't have anything to say about it.
All right, move on. Next story. Let's do it.
There is a super chat though, Chris.
Oh, hold on. I didn't notice.
Oh, holy crap.
Hoff Power Concrete and Simplified Crawfish Company gives us another $2 and said, this super chat identifies as $100. Well, that's hilarious and disappointing all at the same time. I'm not angry, Hoff Power Concrete and Simplified Crawfish Company. I'm just disappointed. All right.
It's all the lefties' fault. You see what they've created? Now people could just identify as... Go ahead, Chris.
You know what? With inflation, if you did give us $100, it would be worth $2. So
yeah, exactly.
That works. Yeah. All right, let's do the next story. Let's move on.
So Carville, the Democrat. I don't know. He was the DNC leader at one point, or for Clinton or something like that. Anyway, Democrat messaging is full of shit. Stop ignoring the economy. So, but look. I only got this article because. Listen to this. Why are we forgiving student loans for people that go to Harvard? So he's practically saying that whole loan forgiveness did not work. There's a deeper message in this.
Right. No, of course. Yeah, no, everything that they're doing is backfiring because the left doesn't care about the truth. The left cares about their messaging. The left cares about trying to create the right messaging. And with the internet, that's really hard. Lying becomes a lot harder when everybody has access to the truth. Sorry, go on.
Before I forget again, that's something I was going to mention when we were talking about the last subject, which is basically like, you have the Democrat Party, they're appealing to emotions, they're appealing sort of like this knee-jerk reaction. It's sort of like, you could almost say that the leftists are betting on America being dumb, and conservatives are betting on it being smart, because we're like, okay, we are just going to give them the truth, and we are just going to sort of like be neutral. Everybody is on a level playing field, and meanwhile, the Democrats are just like, oh, like these people hate you, like we'll give you free stuff. Like they're sort of like drift between bribing and scaring.
Right. Yeah.
It's like you should be afraid of this. Like like dangle something in front of you. Like like amnesty for the illegals and things. It's all like base sort of like I make this comparison a lot, but like it's like in Pinocchio where it's like they turn everybody into jackasses because it's just like, oh yeah, you kids want candy and rides and beer, just like you don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah,
we'll take care of everything for you. Like you can just sort of like live a hedonistic life, and all the stuff that you're afraid of, all the stuff that you want, we'll handle all of that. It's like.
And that's what this article is like going against. That stuff's not winning them anything right now. So and that's his complaint, which is crazy for him to say this.
Yeah, no. Look, the Pinocchio Carnival thing is a really good analogy for what the left promises voters. I mean, it really is a great analogy. This guy's talking about like we need to focus on the economy. The economy is crap. Everybody knows it's crap. And like, but here's the crazy thing. Like, didn't this guy figure this out? Like when the policies were being adopted, to like let in all the illegal immigrants, causing inflation, causing all these financial problems, giving handouts to Harvard graduates and all this stuff.
Well, I feel like
why isn't
he's probably been really railing against this for a long time internally, but now he's just like, hey, nobody's listening to me. I'm going to cut out the middleman. Instead of talking to people within my own party, I'm going to appeal to the general public because I'm not getting anywhere.
No, what he's saying is Democrats, we're not lying enough. We're not lying good enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Well, because the thing is, he's inside. He knows how all this stuff works, right? He knows that the policies aren't being created to actually improve America. He knows that. If I don't know what he's complaining about, because if he really wants to improve the country, don't be in the Democrat Party. You know what I mean? Like that's the answer to that.
Right.
Like,
he doesn't though.
Was you want more Democrats to have more power? Like why? Yes. Like because then you're connected to people with power. So that's a problem with a lot of these political guys. They're connected to people with power, and if the people that they're connected to don't have power, then they don't have influence, right? And so then they fight for their side. They fight for their side. Well, don't complain that your side isn't winning because they're not telling the truth or they're not playing the game correctly. If that's like, he helped invent the way they play the game. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he was back during the Clinton age developing the way they play the game. And so he's now complaining that that's not working anymore.
I still feel like it's not your desperation. This is probably he is losing influence. His personal power is slipping away. And therefore he's trying to
exactly. Just like
Hillary.
That's why
Hillary's always out there shooting her mouth off. Nobody gives a crap. But she goes out there because she wants to keep her name and her face in the news, even though she's a laughingstock.
Could not have said it better myself. You have anything to say about this, Jason, or are we moving on?
He's a dinosaur. His way of doing things is just not working anymore, because I think people are waking up, and his way of solving the issue is just lie to everybody's face. And I think people now can see the lies for what it is, with the lies that the left are giving, and I think that's really like freaking him out.
Well, by the way, just before we go on to the next story, let me just throw this out there. Somebody on Facebook, I don't know who this was, he's posting comments on all of my videos saying, don't listen to this guy. He's a Republican who says he loves RFK Jr. He loves RFK Jr. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking? So I go into the comments. I'm like, why are you? Yeah, that's what he's saying. I love RFK Jr.
You? What?
Yeah.
So,
Jason,
so I'm like, why?
That's funny, but it's pretty childish of you. You should probably stop doing that.
Yeah, it's me. It's me, Chris. I'm sorry.
He's always interrupting people.
Oh, Kurt, you ruined it, man. Come on. That was top secret. That was between you and I. Come on.
Yeah. Anyway, so I went. So I go in and I'm like, what? I go, what are you talking? Yeah, exactly. I go, what are you talking about? And the guy goes, you were on Sebastian Gorka and you said, I love RFK. And he's right. I mean, he may be right. I may have said those words, but not because I love RFK, right? Like, the reason I would have said it is because I'm saying, like, I think RFK is going to take more votes from Biden than he's going to take from Trump. So in that sense, I love RFK, but I don't love RFK's policies. You know what I mean? I don't want people to vote for RFK.
Wait a minute, Kurt. It does sound like me. Any little thing like that would
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you're
I don't rhino.
You're actually, it's funny because you're the rhino hunter, but you resemble Democrat voters in one way, where you tend to be like, if there's a issue hang up, if there's a chink in the armor, you'd be like, you'll seize on it, which is kind of the problem. I could be wrong, but this is the problem I have with a lot of people in the Republican Party, in the conservative.
There is a chink in the armor. It's you, Kurt.
Yeah, I'm Japanese, goddammit.
That was a Chinese slur. That was brilliant. Okay, I love it.
Well played, sir. But yeah, I think that we shouldn't get too hung up on single issues, or what I've said this before when I'm talking to Chris, is the issue I have with conservatives is they are always letting the great get in the way of the good. They're just like, yeah.
Actually, Jason and I had that conversation privately.
But this issue, I'm hung up on it, and it's like then you get things like the Never Trumpers. You get all these things.
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, is what you're trying to say.
Yes. Thank you, because I was trying to say something, but I was having some difficulty.
Again,
I was so devastated. I was so devastated by that sick burn from Jason that I couldn't recover. I was shattered physically and emotionally. And mentally.
I love you guys as much as we bicker. I love you guys. All right. Well, we can all agree that Carville is an old, washed-up loser. All right, moving on. Next story.
Isn't that fantastic? I mean,
it really is. I love to see him. I love to see him suffer.
Okay, so Reagan star Dennis Quaid praises Trump. Abraham Accords would have prevented Israel-Hamas war. I love Dennis Quaid. He's like one of my favorite actors.
I've never been a bigger fan than I am right now.
You know what? He looks pretty good as Reagan. I mean, he doesn't quite look like Reagan. He looks like Dennis Quaid in a Reagan costume. But he's doing good. I like Dennis Quaid. I like all these actors. We had one of the actors from this movie on Making Movies Great Again the other day, which was kind of fun. I actually have met Penelope Ann Miller, who plays Nancy Reagan. Great human being. Great human being. Highly recommend everybody have a positive view of Penelope Ann Miller. Very flirtatious woman, but not in a bad way. But very charming woman. And Dennis Quaid, awesome dude who doesn't hate Trump. But anyway, I'll let you guys take this one because I didn't read this article. But yeah, I love these actors as well.
Go for it, Kurt. I know you wanted to talk about this.
Yes, I do. I'm actually excited to see this movie. I'm a fan of Dennis Quaid. I've been watching these movies for years, obviously, but I didn't realize he's kind of like ramping up the conservative stuff recently, which obviously I'm a fan of. But
a bit underrated, actually, Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, I enjoyed this article. He was talking about how he loved Reagan, he voted for him twice, and he voted for Carter, and he's just like, "Hey, my bad." Like, I thought it was a good idea
did read the article, actually. I remember reading that. Yeah.
Oh, now you remember? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is good. I think we need these Hollywood types, these recognizable insiders to sort of like branch out and do this kind of work where obviously he loves Reagan and he wants to do sort of like I don't know if it's going to be like a syrupy sort of like portrayal of where it's like, you know, a propaganda piece where Reagan was so great and everything, but I'm interested to see it. And recently, did you guys ever see the what was the not Tombstone, but Wyatt Earp? You guys ever see the Wyatt Earp movie?
Yes.
From like the early to mid 90s. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yes.
He was great as Doc Holliday in that. Val Kilmer gets all of the accolades because he kind of stole that whole movie, Tombstone. But
if Val Kilmer never played Doc Holliday, his would have been by far an awesome
Dennis
portrayal
Quaid played Doc Holliday in Wyatt Earp, which was the Kevin Costner Tombstone movie. It's a much smaller part, much smaller. He's sort of like you could almost call it a cameo, really. I think he has like 3 or 4 big scenes in that movie. But he was great in it, and over the years he's done a lot of good work. So I hope these continues to be successful.
Dennis Quaid had this I know it was a big thing, like the cough that he had during that film. Like there was something like he practiced to make that cough really sound like he had tuberculosis, and that for me that was amazing. Like that he really brought that out, like Doc Holliday having that issue. Of course Val Kilmer also did a great job at that too, but they're both good roles. But Val Kilmer, man,
I think
I'll be your Huckleberry, right?
I think what happened
you can't beat that.
I think what happened there is Kurt Russell was instrumental in the editing of Tombstone because it was directed by Cosmatos. But I think what happened was they wound up with a really, really long movie, and Kurt Russell just cut out all of his own stuff. So it became much more of an ensemble movie. And because everything with Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday was gold, that all stayed in. So it became sort of like Val Kilmer's movie, even though he was the lead character and the star. He sort of like handed the shine over. Yeah. If you know anything about Kevin Costner, he wasn't about to do that. So this is very much Kevin Costner's movie. He's got an ensemble cast, but essentially all these other great actors that are in that movie. It's the anti-Tombstone because it's Kevin Costner's movie, and look at all these other actors. Yeah, they got like 3 short scenes each here and there. But Dennis Quaid looked like he was going to die in that movie. People talk about how Val Kilmer looked sick and he looked thin and he looked whatever. Dennis Quaid looked like he'd been dead for like 3 days. Yeah, but he was somehow being like puppeted like a Weekend at Bernie's style.
I agree, but Val Kilmer looked sick too. I mean it's a difficult one, but man, Chris, we should do one day get an extra day and just do movies. You know, we should have our own movie.
I know we like that crap too much.
Here's my thing about Dennis Quaid. I think Mr. Reagan should have played Reagan.
That would have been great, right? young Reagan. Look, Dennis Quaid is, I think, one of the great underrated actors of our time. Yes. I think he should have been an A-list star. He in some ways he is, like, I think he kind of wavers in and out of like A-list stardom, and then like, you know, kind of goes into obscurity for a little while. Like he kind of disappears and then he does another big role. But he's always been so solid. He's such a charismatic actor. I don't get why he's not there with like, you know, Clooney and those other big guys. Dennis Quaid's fantastic.
There was a movie that he was in. It was Gridlock. No, the one with the Belushi. Is that how you say it? Tupac is in it.
I don't know what
James
James
Belushi. Belushi.
Yeah, I think he was in it. Well, there's a movie where Dennis Quaid was in it. And it's an underrated movie, but this movie is so good. Like he plays like a homeless guy, and they like frame him for a murder, and then his character ends up being like this really like a rich person that comes from a rich family. Man, it is an amazing movie. And he did such an awesome job in that movie. Like, yeah, I gotta.
But he's awesome in everything. Yeah, I've seen him in lots of different stuff, and he's always great.
Gang related. Gang related.
Yeah, it showed up.
People watch gang related.
It's funny because I've seen this actually. I think this might be free on like Amazon or something. But yeah, it's like on the cover. It's Belushi and it's Tupac. Dennis Quaid gets an but he's nowhere to be seen on the cover.
Oh, but because the whole plot of his
slap Dennis Quaid on the cover, I would have watched this damn thing.
Yeah, but here's the thing about it, Kurt. Here's the thing about it, Kurt. You're not supposed to know who that is until they clean him up, because he plays like a homeless man. I didn't know he was in it too, and I thought I was like the homeless guy. But when they finally cleaned him up, I was like, oh shoot, that's Dennis Quaid, and it was like one of those moments in the movie that you're like, oh, yeah.
Well, is that Reagan movie out yet? Is that Reagan movie out yet, or is it coming out?
I assume it's still going to come out because they're doing the press for it now. So I would assume it's not coming out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that it's out yet, but as soon as it comes out, if it's out now, we should watch it. Oh, it's set to open August 30th. It's August 30th. As soon as that comes out, I got to watch it, right? I got to like watch it the day it comes out and do a review of the Reagan
you have
movie.
to.
I think
that's a long way off. So they're shooting it now. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny? When I met Penelope Ann Miller, she had actually just got that role. And that was like a few years ago. Yeah. That was a while
ago, because you're out of that circle now.
It was because she was talking to me about it. Yeah. But anyway, all right. Jason, next story.
Senator Katie Britt. Democrats block Laken Riley Act in Senate again. This is just sickening. You know, like this shows who they are.
Sickening. This is sickening. Why would you block? This is the only question I have. This is the only comment I have about this. Because just to really briefly summarize this, they're basically trying to make a law that says if you commit a horrific crime as an illegal immigrant, that you are you are immediately going to be transferred into the custody of the immigration authority, right? So ICE, I believe it's ICE. And then they're going to deal with you, right? And what are they going to do? I don't know. We would see. Maybe they get deported. Maybe they get put into a special prison. Hopefully a prison that I believe that there's a prison called "quote unquote" Black Site. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one, but it's supposedly not a very nice prison to be in. That was a joke that nobody got or laughed at or cared. Apparently, are you paying attention, Kurt? What's going on?
Well, I assume that's actually what it's called.
Yeah, I thought that was an actual thing.
A black site is where they go to torture people. You guys never heard of the term black site?
Oh,
no.
Oh, well, I guess I'm in agreement with that.
Okay, never mind. Never mind. Anyway, it was obviously a joke. Whew, did not work. But anyway, the
I know
point
how
is,
I feel.
well,
Because
black site is
maybe we wish it wasn't a joke.
Exactly. Well, black site is like if you have a country who is friendly with America, but they don't necessarily follow the same rules as America does, we send some of our people that we need to get information from or whatever to that country, to that, particular location, that black site, and then they get the information out of them any way that they can. That's a black site, right? It's a thing that's commonly referred to in fiction, but it exists. It's a real thing. But anyway, So anyway, we send him to the prison called the Black Site, which is a popular prison for people like this. But anyway, yeah. If you commit a heinous crime as an illegal immigrant, you know, we want to stop all these slap on the wrist things. You know, not just a heinous crime. I think just about any crime. Like, why are they just being in this like local custody with these activist judges going, oh, we can't punish the poor immigrant because like the degenerate scum who attacked Laken Riley, this piece of garbage had already committed crimes. And if he had been dealt with properly, he never would have been able to attack that beautiful young girl. So like, we do need to fix that system. The fact that the Democrats refused to pass this bill, or even they didn't even like bring it to the floor, you know, like this is disgusting to me. I don't understand it. Maybe you guys have an explanation.
The party of death, the party of Satan. Yes, of course they would not vote for. They would vote against that. How about we start with not letting these people in?
Tell us what you really think, Jason.
Bunch of deviant, hateful, racist people. Yes. Want me to go on?
Well, I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand why. I don't understand why anyone votes Democrat. To be honest, like, why do you vote Democrat?
Well, they're showing their colors here. It's like this is just a escalation. This is an extension of the policies they were already doing with legal Americans. They're basically saying like making crime legal in these Democrat cities, New York, California, like well, that's obviously the state, but you know, like San Francisco, things like that. Just like we're not going to worry about drug addicts. We're not going to worry about like shoplifting. Like, oh, you're shoplifting. If it's under $1,000, who even cares? And the businesses leave and they say, oh, the businesses are racist. The businesses like should operate at a loss to make our policies look like they work. Nothing these people do works. It's just basically like, okay, we're not going to enforce the law. We're going to make all of these laws, and then the laws that are there to protect the people, we're going to ignore them. It's going to be a revolving door for criminals. And immigrants, they call them, I mean, they're invaders is what they really are, but they, you know, they're hung up on terminology.
Illegal aliens.
Migrants, whatever they want to call them now. It's
illegal aliens.
They are criminals. They're in the country illegally, and then they commit more crimes, and they're just like, yeah, you know, well, but we don't really like want to have to deal with that. We don't have to. We don't want to brand these people as criminals. It's like it's the Democrat policies on full display. It's just like illegals first, criminals first, Americans last. Forget about like illegals or anything. Just like American citizens get they get no respect. They get no justice. It's all about. It's the Great Replacement. It's here.
Plus, they don't want to bring to light what's actually going on, you know. And by voting against this, they're saying no, that's not really happening. What are you talking about, you know? Because if they were to support it, it'll be actually a victory for conservatives because it's telling everybody that actually there is a problem with these illegals crossing the border. Exactly. Yeah. So that goes to show you how evil they are, and it's what I was talking about. Like they do these things that hurt the people. But it's just for power, you know. They don't care the cost of what they do, you know. And
this really is like. Sorry, go ahead.
Go on, Kurt. No, go.
I was just gonna say, like, that's the thing too. It's like, don't believe your lying eyes. This is the policy now. It's like the leftist media asks Biden, like, oh, what about inflation? It's like, oh, it's not happening. It's not a real thing. He goes from, oh, inflation is good to it's better to it doesn't exist. It's just like, okay, anyone that's paying any attention, it's just like, what are you even talking about? So,
and either way they look bad. Either way they look bad. They voted for it, they vote against it, they look bad.
Yeah,
it's a losing issue for them.
And I don't know if you guys saw this in the news this morning, or I guess it would have been this morning for you guys. There was this big story about the Chinese immigrants that are coming in. There's like these huge numbers of Chinese immigrants coming in. Most of them are military-age males. And, you know, they've asked experts about this, and the experts have said, Yeah, they may be building an army in the America. They may be sending an army here. The Chinese may be sending guys in case they want to invade to be like sleeper cell agents. And it's crazy because like I think that the story went something like most of the immigrants that come in get picked up by these NGOs, right? These nonprofit organizations that like shuttle them wherever they want to go. You want to get on a plane, we'll send you here or whatever. But the Chinese that are coming in, they don't go with the NGOs. They get picked up by private cars and then they get sent to where they need to go. And also the Chinese recently were identified as having secret police stations, private police stations in American cities to police their own illegal immigrants that are coming in here. They had a bio lab somewhere in California that was run by like Chinese folks.
Well, if you bring in these Chinese spies, you don't want them going native. You don't want these Chinese to pose as
that's
like
it. That's the point, right?
And they come into America like,
exactly.
Yes, we're here, we're free.
I was watching from another channel. The name I think it was Black Scout Survive. I don't know. I think that was the name, but he was talking about how, because he was like an ex-military, and he was talking about how there was this Chinese spy that was infiltrating like all these special forces training, like these ex-special forces people that would train like civilians and stuff. And he was showing how this one Chinese spy was like training with them, and it would go to all the training. And then he's back in China now, training the actual military in China with the skills that he learned here in the US. And man, it's crazy.
The Chinese are like the best at espionage. And I think the reason is because for whatever reason, I don't really know why, no one in the world has been taking them seriously for the last 10 years.
I've been saying that all the time. You know, Chris, I wrote a whole movie. It was called Red Storm Rising, and it was all about the Chinese coming and taking over America. You know, this was maybe 15
I hate to tell you this, but in the 1980s...
it was Russians, though.
Red Dawn. There was this movie, Red
Russians.
Dawn. Yeah, I know. Okay, it was Russians. You're right, but they updated
well,
it.
Mine was like a offshoot of that. Like it was obvious what I was trying to get at, like a revamping of Red Dawn.
Red Dawn.
But
they
Chinese
did a remake of Red Dawn with the Chinese, though, didn't they? Or was it
my whole plot was they came in through like the shipping containers and all that. And all that stuff, but it was. I wrote a whole thing, and I had this thing about China. Like, what the hell is wrong with the United States? Why are we giving all our manufacturing, everything to the Chinese? Our economy's going to China.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, aren't they communist?
You know, it's a good idea. It's a good idea if we switch entirely to green energy. You know why? Because who makes all the solar panels?
China.
Oh, that's right. It's the Chinese. Yeah, we'll just make them the most powerful country on earth. Yeah,
and it's shocking because I understand why he would do that, but even Elon Musk is like I think he built a manufacturing plant for the EVs there in China for the Tesla. So it's crazy how we're selling ourselves to these communists, and it's just shocking to me. I can't understand.
I don't think you have a choice though if you're working at scale at this point in. How do you work at scale, like at the kind of scale that Elon Musk is working at?
Don't go to China. Go somewhere else. I don't know. Like there's a million other places.
Well, Jason, I'll explain it to you really simply why we don't take the Chinese seriously. It's because if they said the name of your fiction, they'd say Red Storm Rising. And everybody laughs.
And also they've got that fun song that everybody likes. And it just sounds so disarming. And we just all go, that sounds great, doesn't it? Well, you guys are so funny.
For a second there, I thought I was in the club. That's my jam.
Yeah, Kurt's jam.
I'm actually shocked that hasn't made a comeback with all of the sampling and all of the nonsense that happens.
That's a good one, isn't it?
That was in Turning Japanese in the 80s, so it's due. It's due for resurgence.
Is it? I think I'm turning Japanese. I think I'm turning. Was it in that?
You wish.
Wasn't it?
It was in that.
Wasn't it in what?
But that I think that is like a Chinese or Japanese thing. I think it was before that song.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Isn't that? Everybody
Probably.
was kung fu.
Oh, maybe it was that one.
Probably.
Yeah,
Something like
maybe
that.
it was
that
that one.
predates that, obviously. That's a 70s song, so yeah.
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 I
Well, this is
wonder
what you
what
turn
that.
into,
I wonder
folks.
what that comes
You
from.
don't come from the politics. You come from the Asian sampling music.
Yes, that's why we do our show. Well, what is that? Where is that from? Where is
I don't know
what is that from? I would love to know that.
probably
People
from
in the
some,
chat?
like it's probably from
People
some
in the
black
chat.
and white Charlie Chan movie from like the 30s, and it's probably
Yeah.
was composed by some Jewish guy who was working on the
Yeah.
It's probably not has
Yeah,
no basis in Asian
China
culture whatsoever. Yeah.
Half Power Concrete and Simplified Crawfish Company, $5. He says Elon China plant is for the cars he sells in China only. Okay, I didn't realize that. So that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
I got to look into
Thank
that.
you, Half Power
China's
Concrete
gonna
and
buy.
Simplified
China's gonna buy Tesla cars when they already
We
have their
actually
own.
touched on this earlier in the show,
EVs.
but China is doing badly. China's economy is collapsing. Their real estate market bubble is bursting. Their car manufacturing, like there's a lot of problems going on. I don't know if you guys.
You mean
follow a lot of
those
these YouTube
those
channels.
cities that are empty are having an effect finally?
There's a big problem in the Chinese economy. So, if history has taught us anything, then going to war with America to unify the country may be a good way for them to pull themselves out of the fire in terms of like giving them a reason to work. You know, it's sort of like what the Democrats do in America. It's just like, hey, look over here. This is your enemy. Watch out for this guys over here. You know, like don't worry about us fleecing the nation. Like pay attention to like all this petty squabbling. So we may see the Chinese leadership take desperate action and try to pull like a Hail Mary. And be like,
maybe
war
they might
with
try to take
America
Taiwan.
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
Japan
look,
seems to
I
think
said
so.
that
Japan's building the military up.
I said this in the last video, I think, in the last live stream, but like, you know, we're against corporations having monopolies, but government is the biggest monopoly of all. If you give government unlimited power, like in a communist authoritarian regime, what's going to happen? There's going to be inefficiencies everywhere. You're going to destroy your economy. You're going to destroy your government. You're going to destroy your country. It always happens without fail.
And the United States was never supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
No. And the only reason China pulled themselves out of it at all is that they adopted a bunch of capitalist ideas for a while. But now they're devolving back into this communist authoritarian thing, because authoritarian dictators, they do not like to give up their power. And when they do, they want it back. And so, they're regressing. Anyway, I think Kurt's done with the show. We're getting a nice shot of the buzz cut there. I don't know.
With my cheap desk fan, so I shut it off.
You guys have anything you want to talk about real quick before we close the show? Anything interesting going on in the private lives? Anything interesting going on in Miami, Jason? Anything interesting going on? We're all in tropical locations. I just realized that.
That is true.
We're all in different disparate.
And let me tell you,
like
it is so hot and muggy here. It's horrible. I don't know. Like this is one of the hottest summers here.
It's not just the gays that are suffering from climate change. It's us too.
Yeah, I'm suffering from climate change. Yeah, it's horrendous here.
Yeah, the weather is
no
taking
such thing.
A bit of a turn. It's getting hotter sooner, and I don't like it because I've naturally run hot, and I don't like being warm. But here we go. It lasted a long time though in Hawaii. The cool weather really was holding on for a long time, but now we're losing it finally.
Yeah.
So
I want that climate change. I hope climate change happens and it just makes summers cold. Bring it.
Well, listen, it's funny. Like I don't believe there's any such thing as the catastrophic anthropogenic climate change that they claim exists. Does the climate change? Of course it does. Why does it change? I don't think we fully understand that. But, there's different theories, and anthropogenic climate change is part of it. The catastrophic anthropogenic climate change, I don't think is real. But my father always says the same thing because, we're from Oregon, which is quite cold a lot of the time. And as the summers maybe get a little bit milder, he's like, I love this climate change. I hope I wanted to get more. I want more climate change. Let's dump as much CO2 into the atmosphere as we can.
Chris, did you learn nothing from Dennis Quaid in The Day After Tomorrow? He tried to warn us all. And I, for one, will not sit by while you discredit the man that's about to play Ronald Reagan.
What is the show? What is the show? The film that was it was at the same time as God, what was it? What was that movie with Ben Affleck trying to stop the meteorite hitting Earth and blowing it up?
Oh yeah, there was
Armageddon
and Deep Impact.
Deep Impact was the other one.
What's the other
I've
one?
always wanted to see Deep Impact because I saw Armageddon and you know, it's good. I don't really like. I'm not a Ben Affleck fan, really. I'm not like a huge Liv Tyler fan, but I did like the Bruce Willis character and how he like sacrifices himself for the world.
Spoilers, please, Chris.
Now they do that in every movie.
You haven't seen Deep Impact. Conceivably, there's like 3 or 4 people in the world who haven't seen Armageddon. So, come on.
Sorry, yeah.
Well, I thought Deep Impact is, if you look at it, it's like Hollywood telling you what they want to do. Because they have the underground bunkers,
and because it came out at the same time, and I think a lot of people went to see Armageddon for some reason. Deep Impact kind of got, but I've seen clips and it looked good, so I think maybe.
Well, if you watch the movies from back then, these disaster movies, there was a message there. It was always they had to save the youth, no matter what. The youth had to be saved because the old people had to sacrifice themselves. And it was always there was always a special place to protect the youth, like either a bunker.
It's eugenics.
Yeah. It was a message, big time message. And I think Deep Impact was the first time Hollywood portrayed a black president, U.S. president, I think.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jason. I just finished watching, as you know.
Oh shoot! I spoiled it.
No. You said Morgan Freeman was the first black president on film. I think actually the first one was. Fifth Element, Tiny Lister.
Yeah.
And I know,
but he wasn't president of America though. He was president of like that whole
the world.
The world.
Yeah. So I'm right in a way, Kurt. I'm right in a way.
Okay. Yes.
And the most recent president.
You were right in the wrong way. Sorry.
And the most recent black president of the world was Stacey Abrams, if you guys remember.
That's right. Yeah.
In one of the Star Trek things. How sick is that?
That perfectly illustrates the downfall of cinema and media in general. Just like we went from Tiny Lister to Morgan Freeman to Stacey Abrams. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Anyway,
how we have fallen.
The sci-fi original movie version of Deep Impact, Stacey Abrams and the Morgan Freeman.
Like that's how crazy Hollywood is now. like back in the day, like Morgan Freeman. Okay, that kind of makes sense. That's okay. That's a great casting for that.
He's got that. He seems like he has integrity. He
commands. He's
respect.
Presidential. Yeah,
he's presidential.
Wait, he also did he? No, because I was thinking like those movies with Gerard Butler where White House Down. Was Morgan Freeman the president in that one too? I think so.
I think maybe. Yeah, I think he was. Yeah. For sure.
And like Stacey. Then we come to that.
Sorry.
Then we come to that to Stacey Abrams. It's like, okay, how we have fallen. How we have fallen.
Yeah. Was he not the president, Kurt? I think he was the president. No.
Yeah.
No, it was the president in those movies was what's his face from.
Oh no, but Morgan Freeman,
Batman
I think in the third one becomes president. In the third one, he becomes president. I think
it was Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah, but I think in the third one he becomes president.
I didn't see the third one. Fool me.
They're all great.
3 times. Shame on me.
No, I love those movies. So I love me and my wife. We
love
love
those. They're good movies. They're good movies.
I liked the first one. I never saw the. It's funny you mentioned that movie because that's sort of a Armageddon Deep Impact sort of situation too. Because they had they had the what's his name, Jimmy Fox version with Magic Mike.
Oh, terrible.
It was right around the same time. Yeah. It was like, what was that one called?
That's true.
What was that one called?
I don't remember, but that one I watched that one too.
Dirty terrorist hands off my Jordans, you damn dirty ape.
Yeah, but that's like the perfect example of like two movies that you could compare and see what worked, what didn't work. But the White House Down movies, man, I love those movies. And the second one was even good where London Down, something like that.
Yeah, London Has Fallen.
Yeah, London Has Fallen. Awesome movie, man. I love them. Those movies were awesome, and they were very man movies. They were manly. They were like Gerard Butler, it was a man action hero and saving the world,
Yeah, speaking of Gerard Butler, since we're going to keep prattling on incessantly, I'm enjoying this personally, so let's keep it going.
I think Sebastian Gorka's got to say something because Chris is on the phone.
Chris, do you remember? I assume
got a
that's
girl
who he's
here.
texting with. I noticed earlier that he was texting to the show. It's like, this is Sebastian Gorka probably talking about what an idiot I am, and he should get me off the show because it's all about me. That's my own self-obsession, my own neurotic sort of like reactions. This is Gorka telling him to get Kurt off.
It's just a girl. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Just a girl. Don't worry about it. But yeah. Chris, do you remember Ames Bond?
Oh yeah.
No, I'm Ames Bond. It's a totally different character. Yeah,
it's a totally different.
I had this idea. We're gonna write this thing where we thought that Gerard Butler would be a good James Bond because he's sort of like successor to Connery. He's a very masculine guy. He's got the Scottish accent and everything. So I forget what the context of it was, but we had this idea where Gerard Butler would be in this project, potentially self-funded, which is a blatant ripoff of James Bond. But it would be sort of like this thing that actually became more successful than the actual James Bond because the James Bond went so woke that the entire fan base just abandoned it and just like moved over to Ames Bond, which nowadays with the way media is going, it's highly plausible. It's a shame we never got that going.
Yeah.
That was such a good idea. We had this whole concept.
And he had this whole concept too because he has this sense of humor to him. He's sort of like Chris Pratt. We can play the comedy. Mm-hmm. He's very good at that. So yeah. Ames Bond should have
the whole show was called Pitch. And
the idea was episode,
yeah. And there were these guys that were basically just trying to pitch TV shows in Hollywood and constantly failing. Even though their ideas were genius, they couldn't ever get a show produced.
It was sort of like Ricky Gervais' show Extras, right? But without the chubbiness of atheism.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And at one point, the main character, the character I kind of wrote, after myself, he's doing an English accent like at like a bar, just joking around with his friends, doing the name's Bond, James Bond, that kind of thing, and just mess around. And a producer for James Bond thinks he's actually English, and says, "Can you audition for a role tomorrow? Because you're just like perfect for this part." Gives him his card. He's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." Just kind of like blows it off. But then he goes to the audition and doesn't realize he's auditioning for flipping James Bond, gets the role, and who this is years ago when we thought Gerard Butler could potentially be a James Bond, and Gerard Butler was up for the role as well. He's horrified that he doesn't get the role, so then he kind of starts hanging around with this guy's buddies.
Yeah.
This guy's buddy, and they do a short film series called Ames Bond, which is totally different than James Bond, and it's a funny thing.
And the idea was like there would be a backlash because you were American. You couldn't play James Bond.
Yeah, exactly. American. Yeah. So
I have a question for the both of you. Who's your favorite action hero, male action hero, or male character?
That's a much broader question. When you said who's your favorite, I anticipated you would say James Bond actor, obviously, but that's way too on brand for the subject matter. So that wouldn't be Jason.
No,
like that's too pertinent. To the conversation.
My ADD kicked in, and I'm already bored of the whole James Bond issue.
You already forgot the question you asked. Okay, Chris.
Yeah, sorry, no, nothing. What?
Stop.
She's good. She's great. She's a great girl. She's a good girl.
You and Penelope Ann Miller can flirt later. All right.
This is not Penelope Ann Miller. This is. I'm not gonna
tell you. Who is your favorite action star?
Jason,
Chris.
You go first because obviously you have it locked and loaded, and Chris is not paying attention.
No, go to Jason. Go to Kurt.
Me? Well, mine's is somebody already said it. Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood's my favorite. Clint Eastwood's good.
Oh,
he's a tough one
good
to top.
call.
Pretty great.
Good.
I love Clint Eastwood because Clint Eastwood's acting. I love it. He's like the perfect action star. Like the thing about Clint Eastwood that I love, and if you get an actor like this, it's amazing. I worked with an actor that was just like this. But if Clint Eastwood didn't have to say anything, his face said a million things, and it was all. If you watch a movie like Good, the Bad, and Ugly, basically he's silent throughout the whole movie, but his expressions and his face just says a million things, and that's what I love about him. And it's just such a cool character, cool guy. Like whatever movie he's in, he's just so cool and man, so that's my reason why. And an actor that can just be quiet and let his face say something. That's an amazing actor.
What do you got, Kurt?
Well, it's funny when you're mentioning
Kurt Russell.
Well, Kurt Russell is a comedic actor.
He's awesome. Actually, he's pretty good.
Kurt Russell's a comedic actor, and as much as I love Tombstone and I appreciate, though don't really love, Escape from New York, he's good in that. But like as far as like a purely like
I love
Escape
action, from New York.
Soldier is one of my favorites from him.
Maybe I should watch that again. Give it another chance. When you're talking about Clint Eastwood, there, I was just picturing him in Sergio Leone movies where they have the close-ups and he's sort of like squinting, and he's just sort of like acting with little twitches of his face and stuff. It actually made me think of Bruce Lee, because it's like squinty-eyed acting, but I guess that's kind of like built in. That's not really so much voluntary, but
squinty-eyed acting.
More
interesting
in terms of like just
that did not sound right, Curse.
Just making an expression. Well, I got the Asian pass. You couldn't see it. I can't. But yeah, just sort of like making those faces, and how Jackie Chan sort of did the antithesis of that, where he was just like everybody was mimicking Bruce Lee, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'll hit you," and I'll be like, "Oh, I'm so tough, I'm so mean," and he would like hit the guy and be like, "Ow, I hurt my hand," where he was sort of like the clown. So I would say that my favorite action star would be Jackie Chan.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because Jackie Chan sort of exists unto himself, and I feel like I don't want to say Schwarzenegger, because Schwarzenegger has disappointed me too much with.
Wait, who was it? Who was your favorite? I'm sorry.
Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan. That's interesting.
Yeah. Now, when I was younger, I would say Schwarzenegger for sure, because Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Fuck your freedom.
Yeah, that I mean, he basically ruined it for us all, didn't he? But the great thing about Schwarzenegger was that he wasn't just this bulky, joke. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't just this caricature. I think he kind of was at first, when he was doing Conan and when he was doing Terminator. I think he was kind of a caricature of an action star. He was so bulky, he was so ridiculous, but over the years, you got to start to see his charm with, for instance, Penelope Ann Miller in Kindergarten Cop and films like this, right? So he became this kind of like much more interesting actor, and he became beloved by all Americans. He was really the king of the action stars. But like you said, Kurt, he's disappointed us too much. So I kind of got to go with maybe somebody a little bit more like Rocky, somebody a little bit more like Sylvester Stallone, who has done a great body of work, and again, I think he started out not so much as a joke. He was kind of a serious actor. I think Rocky was like kind of a serious film. It was kind of an arty film, and then over the years, he became kind of a caricature, with some of his more ridiculous films like Demolition Man and stuff like that. But he was always charismatic. Even when he was in a ridiculous film like Judge Dredd, he had charisma, he had presence. And then and you know what? I think what kind of puts him over the top is those Expendables movies. Yeah. Especially like the first few.
He really leans into it, knows his brand. Yeah.
Because he's like doing a little bit of a send up of action films, but they're actually good action films, Yeah. And he brought in all these stars for those movies and everything. Of course, Bruce Willis is amazing. Yeah. Of course, there's so many actors you could list.
Well, there's one that I want to mention that is my honorable mention, is what you say.
Yes.
Which, if it wasn't like Clint Eastwood, I just love the guy. I grew up with him, watching him. But Denzel Washington, man, that guy would be like on my, if Clint Eastwood didn't exist, it would be Denzel Washington, because there's a movie that I love called Glory. It's about the Civil War. Denzel Washington, man.
Glory is great, man.
This guy is such an amazing actor. There's a scene where he's getting whipped and a tear comes down, and you could just see he's not acting in a way
Denzel?
Denzel Washington. Yeah.
But is he an
I literally
though?
called Denzel one of the greatest actors of all time, just like 2 days ago or something. I don't know who I was talking. I don't know if it was Kurt or Jason or somebody. I don't know who I was talking. Maybe my brother. But yeah,
but so that scene, like, it doesn't show a scene of like he's hurting because he's being whipped. No, it shows a scene of resentment, of frustration, of like he's like being tortured and it hurts him, but it's like a way of him fighting against the machine. And that's what brought out in his face. And that's what I love. Like, I love like when they don't act, but you can see their expression. It says a million things. And Denzel Washington is an action star. Denzel Washington is an action star because
the Eraser films are great. The Eraser films are great. I would say, yeah. Well, look, Denzel Washington. It's interesting because we're talking about how they keep Equalizer. Yeah, they keep putting these Eraser. What did I say? Eraser.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Equalizer is what I meant. Yeah, I think Eraser was a Schwarzenegger film that was terrible.
It was. I was kind of confused.
Dare you?
But in the 80s, like we're talking about how they're doing all this DEI crap. I think people are actually, and we're talking about how black people are getting jobs they don't deserve. They're not qualified for, and then it makes the good black surgeons or whatever look bad. And we I think the same thing's happening with actors. I think we're being conditioned. Like there's this new movie Furiosa. And people are actually going and watching it, and they're saying, "Actually, it's really good. It's a lot better than they thought it was going to be." And what's funny about that is you've got all these chick films that are coming out with chick leads, and they're terrible. And so now, if you do have a film that comes out with a chick lead, that's kind of an action film, we automatically go, "Oh, this is going to be crap. This is going to be crap." And it's not fair to the good films, Oh, my camera died, but I can still talk.
Hey, but Chris, Chris, I was like, I just got to see at least 10 minutes of it. The new Doctor Who show. And I was like, I just got to see like 10 minutes. I'm not going to torture myself. I just want to watch 10 minutes. And that Doctor Who is one of the worst actors, one of the worst portrayals of Doctor Who.
No, I've seen clips. It's terrible.
It is crazy how bad that guy is.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. But the thing is, it's also true, I think, of a lot of the black actors that they're hiring now. Like the Doctor Who is a great example. But also there's this show that you and I just finished, right? Called oh
no, don't say it because we're gonna go on a whole 1 hour on that show.
We are gonna, but I want to just say a little. I just want to say a little brief thing. What's it called? What's the show called?
Fallout. You're talking about Fallout?
Fallout. Yeah, and they got this black actor in it. Obviously cast because he's black. Obviously, and here's the thing: the guy went to Juilliard, right? The guy went to Juilliard. I have rarely seen an actor that was trained for theater who can do TV or movies. There are some. Yeah, I have seen some. But man, this guy is such a, like every second of the show, he looks like he's gonna cry. Yeah. No, but the whole damn show.
But Chris, that's a thing now in Hollywood. Like with these actors, they all have these stupid faces now. They give these stupid expressions, like they think that's acting. I think they're trying to do a Clint Eastwood, but they can't. They can't pull that off. Like it's very hard to give your emotions out on your face. Like you said, theater actors.
He's such an over-actor, this guy.
But that's the thing about theater actors. They're not about expression. They're about loudness and making the whole audience hear them.
Yeah.
You can't do that on screen because there are no cheap seats. There's no back row. It's got to be small and intimate. But
all right. Well, I got to get a date with this girl, so I'm going to cut the show off. And my batteries are dying anyway. So I'm ending this. It's over.
He's ending it for a girl.
Chris,
wow.
Chris, no, don't.
I am.
This is incredible.
Nope.
By the way, there was a super chat, Chris. There was a super chat that you didn't put.
No, I did them all, didn't I? Oh, no, you're right. There is one. The same guy. Huff Power Concrete and Simplified Crawfish Company. We love you, man. Gorka has chimed in. Finally, at the very end, he writes, "Glad you fixed your mic." Through that. But Huff Power Concrete and Simplified Crawfish Company says Stallone was a draft dodger. Screw that guy. Nah, man, he's a Republican. I love that guy. I love Stallone. Okay, maybe he was a draft dodger. I don't know about that, but fair enough. Everybody's got their opinion.
My question is, would you go to war for Biden? If there was a war, would you go to war for Biden now?
Yeah, that's the big question that people are asking.
Ponder that. Yeah.
And with that bombshell, we're going to say, remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just that they're trying to take over America and steal power forever. Good night.
And make terrible movies.
And make terrible movies.